to Tinta, and while this marks my debut uploading fanfic and crossover content to YouTube, I want you to know I've been working hard behind the scenes. I didn't just stumble in here. I've got several completed stories and a ton of ideas ready to explore. My goal is to bring you quality content that merges your favorite universes in exciting ways. Thanks for being here from the very start of this adventure. Let's create something incredible together. From the devastating battlefields of the Fourth Great Ninja War to a world where magic is everything. At the climax of a desperate struggle against an otherworldly threat, a vibrant soul, accustomed to chakra and unbreakable bonds, was torn away. What fate awaits Naruto Uzumaki, the hero of Konoha, when transported to a realm where magic is law and guilds are family? Prepare to explore a theory, an unimaginable crossroads, orchestrated by an ancient force. This is the echo of Fiore's Whirlwind, and your journey begins now.
Title: The Echo of Fiore's Whirlwind. Chapter 1: The Echo of a Final Battle. The dense, dusty air of the battlefield smelled of ash, pain, and the metallic tang of blood. The sky, a canvas torn by jutsus and explosions, now seemed to weep with a deafening silence. Below, at the epicenter of the devastation, only he remained, Naruto Uzumaki. His chakra, vast as an ocean, flowed through his body, radiating a golden light that barely managed to dispel the shadows of agony that had been the Fourth Great Ninja War. He had achieved the unthinkable, he had saved the world. Before him, the remnants of the goddess Kagaya at Satsuki vanished into motes of light, a final echo of an ancient threat. Naruto felt the weight of every lost life, every sacrifice. His body, bruised and exhausted, yearned for rest, but his spirit, unbroken, still burned with the flame of the will of fire. Beside him, the spectral figure of Hagoromo at Satsuki, the sage of six paths, watched with an expression of deep satisfaction and a hint of regret. "You've done it, Naruto." Hagoromo's voice resonated in the young shinobi's mind, as ancient as time itself, yet filled with comforting warmth. "You've brought peace to a world that longed for it." Naruto nodded, his breathing ragged. He could feel the exhaustion in his bones, but also a strange lightness, as if a millennial burden had been lifted from his shoulders. "We did it, Sage of Six Paths everyone, we did it." Hagoromo smiled, a smile rarely seen on the deity's face. "Your indomitable spirit, your compassion, these are qualities that surpass even the greatest ninjas who have walked this earth. It's time for you to inherit what is rightfully yours." A blinding light began to emanate from Hagoromo's body, not a violent light, but a pure, ancient energy that flowed directly towards Naruto. This wasn't the temporary chakra transfer that had occurred during the war, this was something different, something permanent. Naruto felt a torrent of knowledge, of power, of an intrinsic connection to the world around him. It was as if every atom of his being was being imbued with the very essence of creation. His eyes, already possessing the power of the Rikudo Sennin, gleamed with an intensity that could rival the stars. "This power is yours now, Naruto Uzumaki. It is the legacy of my two sons, of the union of will and love. Use it wisely. Protect those who cannot protect themselves, and never stop believing in humanity's potential." Naruto could barely process the words. His body vibrated with the new energy, a constant, powerful hum that filled him with an overwhelming sense of completeness. In that instant, a rift opened in space-time behind him. It wasn't a jutsu, nor a recognized technique. It was a scar in the very fabric of reality, a crack the dying Kagaya's last, desperate act. In her final agony, she had sought a way to ensure her legacy, or at least a trace of her influence, would persist, even if it meant taking her greatest adversary with her. The portal was a distorted vortex of impossible colors, pulsing with chaotic, alluring energy. Hagoromo perceived it an instant before it happened, his spectral eyes widening in alarm. "Naruto, look out!" His voice, for the first time, showed a hint of urgency and concern. But it was too late. The portal's pull was irresistible, a cosmic magnet that didn't discriminate. Naruto, still grappling with the immensity of the power he had just received, had no time to react. He was sucked backward with dizzying speed, the desolate landscape of the Fourth Great Ninja War distorting before his eyes. "Old Sage," was Naruto's choked cry as he was swallowed by the dimensional breach, the sound of his voice fading into the roar of spacetime. Hagoromo watched with a mix of horror and fascination as the portal closed behind Naruto, leaving only a trace of residual energy in the air. Uncertainty about his successor's fate hung over him, a cruel irony after such a monumental victory. The journey was a whirlwind of sensations. Naruto felt no pain, but an immense pressure, as if his body were being stretched and compressed simultaneously. Colors merged into an infinite spiral, sounds were a distant, distorted echo of screams and explosions. His mind, however, remained lucid. He remembered Sakura's face, Suzuki's stoic demeanor, Kakashi's smile. The battles, the laughter, the pain, the promises. Hinata, Team 7. Everyone. Would he have saved everyone if he was no longer there? Amidst that interdimensional chaos, Hagoromo's consciousness, or perhaps the resonance of his final gift, reacted. A flash of pure light enveloped Naruto, crystallizing around him. It wasn't a chakra shell, but a translucent, resilient sheath, designed to protect him from the unimaginable forces of interdimensional travel. It was a crystal of unknown origin, a manifestation of the sage's will for his heir not only to survive but also to arrive unharmed at his destination. The sensation of being dragged continued for what seemed like hours, or perhaps only seconds. Time had no meaning in that void. Then, suddenly, the maelstrom subsided. The pressure eased, colors began to define themselves again, though in a different way. There was a light at the end of what seemed to be a cosmic tunnel. Naruto, encapsulated in his crystalline prison, was expelled from the dimensional rift with the softness of a feather, despite the immense distance traveled. The portal closed behind him with an imperceptible click, leaving the new world unaware of its unexpected guest's arrival. The crystal, with Naruto inside, floated for a brief moment in the air of what appeared to be a dense forest. It didn't fall, it descended with supernatural grace, ignoring the laws of gravity of the new plane. A soft blue glow emanated from its surface, a silent witness to its journey. Slowly, with almost reverent delicacy, the orb landed on the ground, just behind a large, rustic, and lively building. The place seemed to vibrate with energy, with laughter and voices. The crystal, now motionless, remained there, an enigma suspended in time, waiting. Inside his protective cocoon, Naruto was in a state of suspended animation. His body recovered, his new energies settled, and his mind processed the overwhelming experience. The trauma of the war was still fresh, the faces of his friends and enemies mixed in his consciousness, but a profound peace enveloped him, a preparation for what was to come. For 3 days, the crystal would remain sealed, a latency period before revealing the hero who had traveled across worlds. Chapter 2: Visions of a War, Shared Heartbeats. Meanwhile, in a vastly different land, untouched by the horrors of ninja wars and dimensional travel, a scarlet-haired woman tossed and turned in her bed. Erza Scarlet, Fairy Tales Titania, was a force of nature. Her name resonated with the sound of steel, discipline, and an unwavering will that few dared to challenge. She was the embodiment of order in a guild known for its joyful chaos. Her mind, trained for strategy and combat, rarely strayed from logic and preparation. Therefore, few things managed to disturb her sleep, and even fewer made her wake with her heart pounding against her ribs and an inexplicable tightness in her chest. But in recent weeks, something had drastically changed. The dreams had started subtly, fragments of fleeting images, like flashes of lightning on a moonless night. At first, she dismissed them as the result of a particularly stressful mission, perhaps persistent indigestion. Sometimes, even she wasn't immune to the side effects of Natsu's feasts. But they had grown more vivid, more frequent, and more disturbingly, more real. These weren't the fantastic, nonsensical scenarios of ordinary dreams, but sharp, raw visions, filled with terrifying realism. That night, the vision had been different. No longer mere flashes. It was an immersive experience, a complete submersion into an alien world. She wasn't a distant observer, she felt every blow, every explosion, the unmistakable stench of ozone and burnt earth, the crunch of rocks under overwhelming force, the chilling fear in the air, the desperation palpable among the combatants, and then, an unyielding resolve rising like a phoenix from the ashes. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her sheets, meticulously straightened before sleep, now twisted under her clenched hands, soaked. She was there, on a devastated battlefield that stretched as far as the eye could see. The ground trembled under the impacts of incomprehensible techniques, pillars of earth rose and crumbled, bursts of energy colored the air like deadly fireworks. Figures fought with a power she had never witnessed on Earthland, a man with a single eye and a strange, swirling pupil that distorted space, children transformed into stone giants, and souls flying into the afterlife. But the epicenter of this maelstrom was always the same, a young man with blonde hair, whose figure radiated golden chakra that spread like a protective aura, and beside him, gigantic bestial forms with demonic tails, unleashing unimaginable destruction. She felt the heat of a fire attack so intense it scorched her non-existent skin in the dream, the gust of a wind that cut like blades. These weren't illusions. It was visceral. The bitter taste of defeat, the adrenaline of victory. And at the center of it all, always, was he. A young man, barely an adult, with fierce determination etched on his face, marked by fatigue and the dust of battle. His blue eyes, sometimes shining with an earth-shaking golden power, sometimes veiled by the pain of loss, reflected the burden of an entire world on his shoulders. She watched him fight, not just for himself, but for everyone. She felt his despair when all seemed lost, his rage when his comrades fell. The invisible tears he shed for lost lives were her own. And then, a surge of hope, a golden chakra that spread like a blessing, healing, protecting, uniting the scattered. Erza woke with a jolt, sitting up in bed with a choked gasp. Her breathing was ragged, her heart a wild drum in her chest. The quiet ambience of her room, with the faint scent of cleanliness and the soft murmur of magnolia in the distance, contrasted brutally with the hell she had just witnessed. Her battle armor, which she habitually left immaculate beside her bed on her oak nightstand, now seemed absurdly small and weak compared to the abyssal forces she had witnessed in her dream. Her hands, skilled at wielding swords and conjuring armor, trembled slightly, a strange, uncomfortable tremor. She brought a hand to her chest, trying to calm the inner turmoil that consumed her. What was that?" she whispered to the air in her dark room, her voice weaker than usual, as if seeking an answer in the shadows clinging to the corners. Confusion was a thick veil settling over her mind, normally so clear and concise. The visions were no longer just distant images, they were feelings, intense emotions that invaded her without warning. She felt that young man's unwavering determination, his crushing burden, his biting despair, his unbreakable desire to protect. It was an empathy so profound, so vivid, that it disturbed her to the depths of her being. Who was this boy? Why was she experiencing his battles, his emotions, as if they were her own? The logic of her mind refused to accept something so inexplicable, yet her body and soul confirmed it with every heartbeat. She got out of bed, the silk of her nightgown rustling against her skin. She walked to the window, pulling back the curtains with a fluid motion. The full moon, a silver disk in the dark sky, illuminated Magnolia with a deceptive serenity, indifferent to the storm raging within her. The peace of the night contrasted violently with the turmoil in her soul. It wasn't fear she felt, an emotion that rarely dominated her, but a deep curiosity mixed with an alien concern, an inexplicable connection that resonated in the innermost recesses of her spirit. "Who are you, young warrior? Why do your battles echo in my soul?" Erza thought, her gaze fixed on the dark horizon, as if she could see through the night, the clouds, and space to the place where that boy was fighting, or perhaps, where he was now. The sensation of his existence was so real she could almost reach out and touch him. The need to release the tension in her body and mind was imperative. She dressed in her training clothes, a simple but sturdy set, and quietly went down the guild dormitory stairs. She headed to the back training ground, an open, well-kept space, surrounded by a wooden fence weathered by time and constant use. The dirt ground, compacted by countless footsteps and simulated battles, was marked with the scars of magic and the sweat of mages. The wooden targets, some splintered and broken, stood defiant. It was a familiar place, a refuge for releasing stress and honing her skills. The cold pre-dawn breeze greeted her, and she began to practice her swords, cutting the air with a precision that rarely faltered. But this time, every strike, every movement, was imbued with the images and sensations of the vision. It was as if part of her mind was still on that distant battlefield, fighting alongside an unknown blonde whose emotions had inexplicably anchored to hers. The echo of an imaginary explosion resonated in her head as she delivered a perfect thrust. The connection was undeniable, growing stronger with each passing moment, like an invisible thread tightening between two worlds. And Erza Scarlet, fairy tale's strongest woman, the unbreakable Titania, had no idea what fate, or the last desperate ploy of a dying goddess, was about to bring to her world. A silent crystal lying hidden among the trees of the very training ground, just a few feet from where she now, her heart still racing, prepared for dawn. Chapter 3: Echoes in Fiore's Heart. The grayish light of dawn filtered through the sturdy oak and pine trees of Fairy Tale's training ground, painting the air with an ethereal hue. Sweat beaded on Erza Scarlet's forehead, her muscles taut yet fluid as her sword moved with the deadly precision of a scarlet lightning bolt. Each thrust was a flash, each cut, a whisper in the cold air. But unlike her usual morning sessions, where her mind was a laser focused on perfecting technique, today it was fragmented, split between the reality of her training and the vivid nightmare of a battlefield from another world. The images of the blonde young man, his golden chakra, and the desolation of his world had embedded themselves in her consciousness like shards of glass. Each time her blade struck a wooden target, she didn't feel the familiar vibration of splintering wood, but the echo of a distant explosion, the crunch of earth tearing open beneath her feet. Her eyes, normally so sharp and analytical, sometimes clouded with the vision of a swirling Sherinon or the immensity of a tailed beast. The concentration Erza always displayed, her trademark, now faltered, if only for fractions of a second. These lapses, imperceptible to anyone but herself, were a silent torture. Her mind screamed, "Focus, Erza. This is here. This is now." But her heart, inexplicably, felt a pull toward that other place, toward that boy. It had only been a few hours since the last vision, but the feeling of emotional exhaustion was comparable to a 3-day mission without rest. She finished her routine with a final sword strike that split a training dummy in half, the impact resounding in the silence of the forest. Her breathing was heavier than usual. She wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her gauntlet and allowed herself a moment to look towards the horizon, where the first rays of the sun painted the sky with shades of pink and orange. "Who are you, Naruto Uzumaki?" The name that had resonated in her mind during the vision's climax, formed on her lips, barely a whisper. The familiarity was unsettling, as if she had known him her entire life. The burden he carried, the weight of a world on his shoulders, had somehow transferred to her, a sharp empathy that constantly accompanied her. It was a sensation of vicarious pain, an alien concern that gnawed at her from within. Was he okay? Had he survived that hellish war? The unreality of the situation frustrated her. It was a battle that wasn't hers, a suffering she shouldn't feel, and yet, it was as real as the steel of her armor. The sun was already high when Erza entered the fairy tale guild hall. The air already vibrated with the characteristic morning clamor, a chaotic chorus of laughter, shouts, the clinking of glasses, and, of course, the ever-present promise of a brawl. The bustle was the symphony of her home, the vital pulse of her family. The vast hall, with its sturdy wooden tables and stone pillars, was teeming with life. "Good morning, Erza," exclaimed Myra Jane Strauss, with her usual serene and welcoming smile from behind the bar, polishing a glass with a white cloth. Her sweet voice was a perfect counterpoint to the general din. "Good morning, Myra," Erza replied, her usual authoritative tone, though a little softer than normal. She headed towards one of the tables, her scarlet eyes scanning the place. As usual, Natsu, Dragneel and Grey Full Buster were already embroiled in one of their usual squabbles. Natsu, with his pink hair, was throwing flames, while Grey, with his mysteriously missing pants, conjured ice stalactites. The rest of the guild mostly ignored them, accustomed to the spectacle. Elfman Strauss yelled man, Kana Alberona was already drinking from her beer barrel, and the rest of the mages chatted loudly. Erza sighed, a barely audible sigh, but laden with a weariness that went beyond the physical. It was weariness of the soul, the weight of alien visions. "Those two," said Levy McGarden, sitting at a nearby table with a book, rolling her eyes with a smile. Her inquisitive gaze settled on Erza. "Everything all right, Erza? You seem pensive." Erza sat down, her armor gleaming in the light streaming through the tall windows. "I've been having strange dreams, Levy. Very vivid." Levy, a scholar and solid script mage, raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. "Oh, what kind? Missions? Attacking strawberry cakes?" Erza attempted a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No. Something more profound. Battles. A different world. And a boy." The mention of a boy made Levy lean in curiously, but before she could ask more, a punch from Natsu sent Grey flying, landing with a dull thud near their table. "You damn underwear exhibitionist," Grey growled, covered in soot. "Frozen flame brain," Natsu retorted, his fists ablaze. Erza stood up abruptly, a dark, palpable aura emanating from her. The entire guild fell silent. Natsu and Grey froze mid-squabble, their eyes wide with terror. "Will you two never learn to behave like respectable guild members?" Her voice, usually a whip of steel, held a nuance of frustration and exhaustion she rarely showed. The stress of her visions made her less patient than usual. Natsu and Grey, seeing the intense look in her eyes, not the usual controlled rage, but a veiled disturbance, decided it was best not to answer. They quickly apologized, getting to their feet and promising to behave better. Erza stared at them for a few more seconds before the aura slowly dissipated. She sat back down, her head slightly tilted. Levy, observing the scene, noticed the subtle difference. Erza was tense. More than usual. "Are you talking about a world with different magic? Some kind of prophecy?" Levy asked softly, with a mix of concern and fascination. Erza rubbed her temples. "I don't know, Levy. It's confusing. I feel his emotions. His struggle. It's like a part of me is there with him. It's exhausting, and I don't know why. The following days passed similarly. Erza continued her guild duties, accepting missions with her usual efficiency. The mission board offered the usual challenges: rogue beasts, minor dark mages, lost items. Life in Fiore was predictable in its unpredictability. But the visions persisted, sometimes at night, sometimes in fleeting glimpses during the day, as if the veil between worlds was thinning. The endless battle, the burning chakra, the boy's determination. The name Naruto. Each vision drained her a little more, leaving her with an underlying restlessness she couldn't shake. Her guildmates noticed her more serious demeanor than usual, her longer silences, her slight distraction. They worried about her, but didn't know how to approach it. Erza Scarlet didn't typically show weakness or perplexity. While Erza grappled with the strange emotional burden of a distant world, the translucent crystal lay motionless and forgotten in the guild's back training ground. It had landed in a slightly more secluded area, among a cluster of young pine trees, semi-hidden by the dense undergrowth around it. The soft blue glow it initially emitted had faded to be almost imperceptible in daylight, camouflaging it further. The first day passed, then the second. Squirrels leaped through nearby branches, birds sang their morning melodies, completely oblivious to the miraculous object and the hero it harbored within. Naruto Uzumaki was in a state of limbo, a deep, restorative sleep that allowed him to heal not only the physical wounds of his last battle but also the invisible scars on his soul. His body, now imbued with the power of the Sage of Six Paths, adapted, reconstructed, strengthened itself. The crystal was a cosmic incubator, a temporary refuge. In his mind, an amalgamation of memories swirled: Obito's face, Niji's sacrifice, Madara's pain, Suzuki's hand. And a voice, Kaguramo's, resonated with whispers of a new beginning, a different destiny. The third day dawned. Erza had risen before the sun, as usual, the unease in her chest stronger than ever. She decided the best way to combat the anxiety was strenuous exercise. The training ground awaited her. The crystal, beneath the cover of the foliage, began to vibrate subtly, a contained energy pulsing from its core. A tiny fissure appeared on its surface. The latency period had ended. Chapter 4: A Destined Unkissing. The cool, damp morning air of the training grounds was usually a soothing balm for Erza Scarlet, a woman forged in the fires of discipline and steel. Her movements, graceful and powerful, were a deadly dance with her sword, each strike a manifestation of her unbreakable will. However, on this particular morning, there was a subtle dissonance, a persistent echo in the back of her mind that disturbed her perfect rhythm. The visions of the war-torn world and the blonde boy who inhabited it hadn't left her. On the contrary, they had intensified, as if the distance between that world and hers had narrowed to an almost transparent thread. She felt an urgency, an expectation she couldn't comprehend, but which drove her to train with an almost feverish intensity. A few feet away from her, hidden among the undergrowth and young pine trees, the translucent crystal encasing Naruto Uzumaki began to glow with increasing intensity. A subtle energy, like the breath of a sleeping dragon, pulsed from within. The tiny fissure that had appeared on its surface the night before now expanded, branching out like a delicate drawing on glass. The blue luminescence became more vibrant, so subtle that in the dawn light, only a keen eye might have noticed it. Time, the protector of the interdimensional traveler, had fulfilled its purpose. Inside the crystal, Naruto stirred. The deep, restorative sleep that had enveloped him for 3 days began to recede. The chaotic fragments of his memories, the devastation, the mourning, Kagaya's final chakra burst, Kaguramo's power transfer settled in his mind, transforming into a clearer understanding. He felt energy flowing through every cell, not just chakra, but something more, something that allowed him to perceive the world in a new way, almost as if he could hear the heartbeat of the earth and the murmur of life around him. Physical exhaustion had completely vanished, replaced by an overflowing vitality. However, the emotional wounds of the war, the weight of loss and responsibility, remained deeply embedded in his soul. A strange sense of loneliness invaded him, an abrupt separation from everything he knew. Outside, the network of fissures in the crystal spread rapidly. A faint hum became audible, a vibration of accumulated energy. Erza, in the middle of a complex sword combo, felt an anomaly in the air. It wasn't fairy tale magic, nor the signature of a known enemy. It was a pure, alien energy, yet strangely familiar in its resonance with her visions. Her scarlet eyes instinctively moved toward the source of the sensation. In that instant, with a barely audible crunch that sounded like crystals gently clinking, the translucent shell disintegrated into thousands of light particles, which danced in the morning air before vanishing completely. It revealed Naruto Uzumaki, standing, still, at the center of what had been his protective cocoon. Naruto blinked, adjusting to the light of the new sun. The air was different, cleaner, more vibrant than his devastated world. The scent of pine and damp earth filled his lungs. His blue eyes, brighter and deeper than ever, scanned his surroundings. A dense forest surrounded him, and beyond, he could make out the outlines of a large, rustic building, from which sounds of life and energy emanated. The feeling of latent power within him was overwhelming, Hagoromo's legacy, but also a new ability he hadn't foreseen, an innate connection to the elements around him, a capacity to subtly manipulate matter, to create. It was the ability of a sage, a builder, not just a destroyer. His attention suddenly focused on the solitary figure training nearby. A woman, with hair the color of fire, shining armor, and a sword that looked like a flash of light. Erza Scarlet. He had seen her in his visions, her stoic face, her unbreakable determination. And seeing her now, so real, so present, a wave of conflicting emotions washed over him. There was recognition, a strange familiarity, and at the same time, the shock of reality. This was not his world. His friends, his village, his mission, everything had been left behind. He felt lonelier than ever, a castaway on an unknown shore. He promised himself to be cautious, reserved. The horrors of the Fourth Great Ninja War were not something he could easily share. Erza, her sword still raised, watched as the light particles vanished to reveal the young man. It was him, the boy from her dreams. Her heart skipped a beat. He wasn't a blurry vision, not a ghost, but a real person, standing in her training ground. His blonde hair, his piercing blue eyes, the whisker marks on his cheeks, everything was exactly as she had dreamed. But there was something more, a deep melancholy veiled his eyes, a burden that Erza, for some reason, felt intensely. Her fairy tale mage instinct kicked in, a stranger on guild territory. Her grip on her sword hilt tightened. But her empathy, that incomprehensible connection forged through dreams, held her back. She sensed no malice in him, only immense confusion and an almost palpable sadness. Naruto, realizing he had been discovered, felt a pang of anxiety. This was not the kind of welcome he had expected. The woman was imposing, her formidable mage aura undeniable, and her scarlet gaze analyzed him with an intensity that almost made him recoil. He took a deep breath, trying to control the whirlwind of emotions and the overwhelming feeling of being an outsider. He had to be careful. He didn't know where he was, who this woman was, or what kind of power existed in this place. Erza, for her part, maintained her defensive posture, but her voice, when she finally spoke, lacked the usual harshness of a first encounter with a stranger. It was a tone of caution, tinged with a nuance of awe and that persistent unease. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice clear and firm, resonating in the sudden silence of the forest. Her sword still pointed toward him, but her arm didn't tremble with anger, but with a strange mixture of anticipation and recognition. Naruto looked into her eyes, a small, sad smile touching his lips. He didn't know what to say. How to explain a portal, a dimensional war, the Sage of Six Paths? The truth was too strange, too heavy. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," he replied, his voice hoarse from disuse and tinged with a fatigue that was not physical, but of the soul. His eyes wandered over his surroundings, searching for a clue, a sign. "And I'm not sure where I am." Erza slowly lowered her sword, though she didn't sheath it. The name. It was him. There was no doubt. Empathy struck her again, a wave of exhaustion and loneliness emanating from him. She felt that echo of her own battles, of the burden she had carried in her youth, and a hint of compassion seeped through her steel exterior. But also, a burning curiosity, what was that crystal? How had he gotten here? "You're in Magnolia," Erza said, her voice now softer, though still authoritative. "And this is the Fairy Tail Guild's training ground." Naruto tilted his head, the name Fairy Tail as alien as the blue sky above him. A guild? What kind? He looked at the remains of his crystal on the ground, slowly dissolving. It was a tangible memory of an impossible journey. Fairy Tail. Naruto repeated, more to himself than to her, as if testing the sound of the new words. His gaze returned to Erza, studying her, trying to decipher her personality through her imposing presence. His mind, accustomed to the complexities of war and strategy, analyzed every detail, every micro-expression. She was strong, no doubt. And, for some reason, he didn't feel she was a threat, despite the sword. Erza, for her part, felt strangely drawn to him. The dreams had created an unusual bond. She wanted answers, many of them, but her intuition, honed by years of danger, told her that this young man was not a threat, but someone lost. And in fairy tale, the lost always found a home. Chapter 5, The Echo of a Lost World. The warm, gentle morning sun of Magnolia rose over the lush trees of the training ground, but for Naruto Uzumaki, every ray of light was a reminder of how alien everything was. Erza Scarlet, the scarlet-haired woman who had appeared from his visions, watched him with a mix of curiosity and strange familiarity. Her sheathed sword didn't hide the authority of her presence. Naruto felt that gaze, scrutinizing, but not hostile. It was a look that sought to understand, and that, at least, was something he could deal with. "You're not sure where you are," Erza repeated, her voice softer now, with a hint of perplexity. She took a step closer, then another, observing the crystalline remnants dissolving on the ground. "Where do you come from? And what was that thing you came out of?" Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous gesture familiar to him, even in his current state. The truth was a whirlwind. How could he explain the concept of dimensions or chakra to someone who probably used a different type of energy? Caution was his best weapon here. Shinobi didn't reveal their secrets easily, and although he had saved the world, the instinct for self-preservation, to protect what remained of his identity, was strong. "It's complicated," Naruto began, his gaze drifting to the surrounding forest, seeking an escape route, not physical, but verbal. "I come from very far away. And that thing," he pointed to the last glimmers of the crystal, "that's what brought me here. A kind of transport." Erza raised an eyebrow, clearly not satisfied with the evasion, but her patience was remarkable, perhaps fueled by the persistent resonance of her dreams. "I don't understand. Are you a mage? A type of magic we've never seen?" Naruto shook his head. "No, I'm not a mage. My energy is different. We call it chakra. And my world, it's not like this one." The revelation was minimal, but significant. Chakra. It was a word she had never heard in any grimoire or in Levi's vast knowledge. Erza crossed her arms, her posture indicating she wouldn't let him off so easily. There was something in Naruto's eyes, a deep sadness, a burden she recognized from her own internal battles, that stopped her from pressing more aggressively. "So, you're lost." Her voice was surprisingly gentle. Naruto nodded slowly, a pang of pain piercing his chest. "Yes. Completely. The last thing I remember is a war. A very long one. And I was alone at the end." The word war echoed in the air, cold and raw. Erza understood wars, the harsh reality of conflict. The weight in his eyes, the way his voice broke when he said alone, confirmed it wasn't a deception. The empathy she felt for him deepened, turning into a kind of protective compassion. This boy, despite his aura of power, seemed vulnerable, like a lost child. "I understand," Erza said, her tone now almost imperceptibly soft. "If that's the case, then come with me. You're on fairy tale territory. Here, no one is alone. Our guild is a family." Naruto looked at her, surprised. "Family?" The word brought bittersweet memories of Irika-sensei, of Team 7, of his own concept of family. The invitation was unexpected. He hesitated. Shinobi caution told him not to trust so easily, that he should assess the threat, but the genuine sincerity in Erza's eyes, and the promise of not being alone, was too strong a magnet for his Jinchuriki heart. "Fairy tale," he murmured, the word already sounding less strange. "Yes," Erza nodded, her stern face softening with a small, almost imperceptible smile. "The best guild in Fiore. Come. You need a place to be. And, perhaps, we can understand more about your chakra." The walk back to the guild was short and silent. Naruto, observing his surroundings, noticed the vitality of Magnolia Town. Picturesque houses, the soft murmur of a river, people coming and going. It was so different from the desolate landscape of his war-torn home world. A cultural shock that hit him hard. Peace. A peace he hadn't known in years. As he walked alongside Erza, his mind began to wander, not only on the war, but also on the power that now resided within him. As they approached the guild, Naruto felt the strange, powerful concentration of energy emanating from the main building. It wasn't chakra, but it was something similar in its vastness and heterogeneity. Erza guided him to the back of the building, where there was a small garden and a quieter area with some stone benches. "You can stay here for a moment. I need to speak with the master." "Don't worry, Master Makarov is understanding." Erza paused, her gaze fixed on him. "But I need you to tell me the truth, Naruto. Are you dangerous?" Naruto looked into her eyes, a hint of determination lighting his own. "Only if forced to be. I fought to protect." not to destroy. But I'm alone here. I need to understand this place. Erza nodded. The honesty in his words was clear. She turned and entered a back door of the guild, leaving Naruto alone with his thoughts. Naruto found a stone bench under a large tree and sat down, the weight of his situation settling upon him. The contrast with his past life was overwhelming. He was no longer the Jinchuriki, nor the hero of the leaf, nor the potential seventh Hokage. He was a stranger in a strange land. He brought his hands to his chest, feeling the flow of chakra within him. It was immense, the power of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of six paths, now completely his own. He could feel the vitality of nature around him, the life in the plants, the energy of the earth. His sense of perception, his six paths sage mode, was active, allowing him to perceive the world in a way he never had before. He closed his eyes, trying to meditate, as he did on Mount Mayaboku. He sought connection with his own power, trying to stabilize the immense energy flowing through his veins. As he did so, something surprising happened. In his internal vision, in the mental landscape of his subconscious, he not only saw Kurama's familiar chakra conduit, now serene and calm, but also something else. An intricate network of energy filaments of a different color, intertwined with his own chakra system. They were not from his world. These filaments pulsed with a strange vitality, and energy he instinctively identified as the magic of this world. What was even more astonishing was that, as his body had recovered within the crystal, his own chakra system had not only stabilized but had also begun to adapt and integrate with the magic of this world. It was as if his body, in its state of suspended animation and with Hagoromo's power acting as a catalyst, had begun to absorb and understand Fiore's ambient energy. His own chakra was transforming, mutating to coexist with this new source of power. This meant that, despite being in a world where chakra was not the norm, his power was not only not dissipating, but was finding a new way to manifest, to flow. This was a monumental discovery. It meant that he could not only use his chakra in conventional ways, but also, with time and practice, he could learn to manipulate the magic of this world. It was an inherent ability, not learned, an instinct of his new state of being. His ability to create, which he had had a fleeting vision of, was not just a manifestation of his chakra, but an interaction with the very essence of this world. He could mold matter, infuse life, or even generate elements. The sage's power adapted to a new reality. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. The uncertainty about his survival, about his relevance in this world, lessened a bit. He was alone, yes, and the past tormented him, but he was not helpless. He had power, and this power was adapting. He was a survivor. He was Naruto Uzumaki. However, the immense joy of this discovery was mitigated by the memory of his friends. Suzuki's face, Sakura's crying, Kakashi's stoicism, Hineda's sweet concern, the loyalty of his Konoha comrades. Would they be okay? Would they know what had happened to him? The idea that he would never return, that he was trapped in this world, was a crushing blow. He decided that, for now, he would remain silent about the true extent of his abilities and his origin. He couldn't afford to take risks in such an unknown place. Reserve would be his shield. The back door of the guild opened again, and Erza Scarlet appeared, her expression a little more relaxed, but still with her characteristic seriousness. Behind her, the unmistakable roar and din of the guild could be heard. "Master Makarov wants to see you," Erza said, her voice calm. She approached him, and for an instant, the cultural shock seemed to dissolve. Erza felt the subtle wave of Naruto's emotions, sadness, determination, loneliness, and a glimpse of that overwhelming sense of power she had felt in her dreams. The connection persisted, inexplicable, but undeniable. There was something special about this young man, something that went beyond a mere castaway. And she, Erza Scarlet, would make sure Fairy Tail welcomed him. Chapter 6, The Guild's Welcome and the Echoes of Power. The roar of the Fairy Tail Guild, a cacophony of laughter, clanking mugs, and Natsu and Gray's eternal squabble, grew louder as Erza approached the main door, escorting Naruto. For Naruto, the sound was an assault on his senses, a tide of energy and emotions that enveloped him. He had never witnessed such a loud, chaotic place, yet there was an undeniable vitality, a latent warmth beneath the din. It was the kind of energy that could only be born from a genuine bond between people. An overwhelming contrast to Konoha's solemn silence after the war, or the coldness of military encampments. Erza pushed open the guild's massive wooden doors, revealing the full spectacle. Daylight spilled into the vast hall, which buzzed with the activity of its eccentric members. Elfman shouted man as he headbutted guildards. Kana was already drinking directly from her barrel, and Miragina's table was surrounded by a group of laughing mages. Natsu and Gray, of course, were on the floor, grappling and hurling insults while Happy flew above them with a sardine. All eyes fell on Erza, and the commotion died down slightly, as if the mere presence of Titania imposed a hint of order. However, it wasn't her usual aura of terror that halted the chaos completely, but the figure beside her. An unknown young man, with messy blonde hair, intense blue eyes, and those curious whisker marks on his cheeks. A subtle but immense energy emanated from him, something that the more perceptive mages of the guild could sense. Erza cleared her throat, her voice rising above the murmuring that began to grow. "Attention! I bring a new visitor. He has traveled from very far and needs our help." Master Makarov Driar, the venerable and diminutive guild leader, was sitting at the bar, drinking his beer with an expression of resigned amusement as he watched his children run wild. Hearing Erza's voice, he turned his head, and his eyes, usually sharp and full of mischief, landed on Naruto. In that instant, something in the atmosphere shifted. Makarov, accustomed to the fluctuations of his members' magic, felt a surge of power so immense, so alien, that his body trembled. It was a torrent he couldn't fully comprehend, but which he instinctively recognized as something monumental. His small, round eyes widened enormously, and his jaw almost hit the bar. His mind, trained in centuries of magical knowledge, couldn't categorize this energy. It was pure power, formless, with no known classification in Fiore. It was the Six Paths Sage's chakra, newly adapted to this new world. Makarov involuntarily took a step back, his hand trembling slightly, spilling a bit of his beer. It wasn't a movement of fear, but of pure, overwhelming awe. He had never felt anything like it. Even the 10 wizard saints would pale in comparison to the magnitude of the power emanating, even unconsciously, from this boy. But Makarov, a master at hiding his true feelings behind a jovial facade, regained his composure in a microsecond. His face reset, adopting an expression of his usual welcome, though a trace of astonishment persisted in the depths of his eyes. Erza, who hadn't taken her eyes off the master, noticed the reaction. The step back, the hesitation, the way his eyes widened before returning to normal. Titania, with her own senses sharpened by the visions and the connection to Naruto, perceived that the master had felt something. She herself felt Naruto's powerful aura, the chakra as he had called it, pulsing with a strength that was different from any magic she had ever known. There was something about him that transcended the limits of the familiar. Other mages noticed it too. Gildarts Clive, the guild's ace, a man who had faced countless dangers, felt a shiver run down his spine. His disassembly magic was powerful, but Naruto's energy was different. Like the universe itself condensed into a young man. Myra Jane, with her keen sensitivity, felt a vibration that made the hairs on her arms stand up. It wasn't dark or malicious, but immensely potent. Even Laxus Driar, Makarov's grandson, and a formidable S-class mage, felt a pang of recognition for Naruto's raw, unrestrained power, which reminded him of the vast expanse of an ocean. Each in their own way perceived something extraordinary. But only Erza, with the weight of the vision still fresh in her mind and the strange empathetic connection with Naruto, understood the depth of what that power meant and the burden the young man carried. She didn't just feel the power, she felt the pain, the loneliness, the exhaustion of a world saved at immense personal cost. Her heart, despite her discipline, ached for him. Makarov cleared his throat, his voice rumbling, surprisingly loud for his size. "Welcome, young man. Welcome to Fairy Tale." His smile was wide, perhaps a little forced at first, but quickly became genuine. He extended a small but strong hand towards Naruto. "I am Makarov Driar, the master of this guild. And you are Naruto, right? Erza has told me a little." Naruto, still a bit stunned by the cacophony and curious stares, extended his hand and shook it firmly. The master's hand was surprisingly strong. "Yes, Naruto Uzumaki. It's a pleasure, Master Makarov." "Bah, the pleasure's all mine." Makarov laughed, a sound like jingling bells. "Any friend of Erza's is welcome here. And any lost soul who finds their way to our guild finds a family. Tell us, boy, where do you come from? And what kind of magic do you use? It seems very interesting." Naruto hesitated. Makarov's question about his origin and his magic was inevitable. He looked at Erza, who watched him expectantly. Master Makarov, despite his size, radiated a wisdom and warmth that invited trust. However, his instinct for reserve remained strong. The secrets of his world were his alone. "As I told Erza-san," Naruto began, deciding to tell the truth, "but only a part of it. I come from a place, very, very far away. A place where the energy we use is called chakra. It's different from your magic, but it allows me to do interesting things. As for what that thing I arrived in was, I only know it protected me on the journey." Makarov listened intently, his expression becoming thoughtful. His eyes, though still showing an amused glint, also analyzed Naruto with a depth that went beyond words. He felt the power, and the boy's caution. "Chakra, huh? Fascinating." Makarov stroked his chin, a small bead of cold sweat trickling down his temple, imperceptible to most. He thought about the implications: an alien, immeasurable power, and a young man who carried it with a mix of innocence and an experience that only war could forge. This boy was an enigma. He could be a great asset, or a danger if not handled carefully. But Makarov always believed in people's potential, and even more so, in the goodness of young people. And Erza had brought this one. "Well, Naruto Uzumaki," Makarov thumped the bar with his fist, making the glasses jingle. "It doesn't matter where you come from, or what you call your energy. Here, at Fairy Tale, you are welcome. We won't pressure you to tell your secrets. We all have our own. We just ask that you follow our rules, and live with joy. And if you're hungry, Myra will serve you the best food on the continent." Myra Jane smiled sweetly and nodded, inviting him with a gesture. Naruto felt a wave of relief. Unconditional acceptance. It was something he hadn't fully experienced in a long time, not since the darkest days of his childhood, before he earned his village's recognition. This guild, this family, offered something he desperately needed: a place to belong, even if temporarily. A small, genuine smile spread across his face this time, lighting up his eyes. "Thank you, Master Makarov. Truly." Meanwhile, Natsu, who had managed to get up from his scuffle with Gray, was already approaching, his eyes blazing with the fire of curiosity and excitement. "A new kid? And he says his magic is different? That sounds like a challenge. I'm Natsu Dragneel. Let's fight." Gray, composing himself and adjusting his pants, finally scoffed. "Idiot, Natsu. Leave the guest alone. I'm Gray Full Buster. Nice to meet you, Naruto." Naruto looked at them, Natsu's chaotic kindred spirit and Gray's ironic coolness. It was a familiar scenario in its own strangeness. The entire guild seemed like a magnified, noisy version of his own Team 7, with a much larger family. A pang of nostalgia hit him, but also a new hope. Erza, observing the scene, felt a warmth in her chest. Despite her own mixed feelings and overwhelming empathy, seeing Naruto smile, even a little, amidst Fairy Tale's chaos, gave her a strange sense of satisfaction. He was safe here. For now. And she was determined to understand the connection between them, and to protect him from any evil that might try to exploit his immense and mysterious power. Chapter 7: Days of Chaos and Containment. Naruto's first few days at Fairy Tale were a whirlwind of sensations. The guild was a universe unto itself, loud, unpredictable, and brimming with an energy that sometimes disoriented him. Master Makarov, with his tiny stature and wise aura, had welcomed him unreservedly, an acceptance Naruto hadn't expected but appreciated with every fiber of his being. He had found a refuge, a friendly haven of chaos far from the horrors of his past. However, despite the warmth of the welcome, Naruto remained cautious. The experience of the Fourth Great Ninja War had deeply scarred him. He had witnessed betrayal, despair, and immense destructive power. Sharing the secrets of his world, the existence of chakra and the tailed beasts, or the true scale of his new abilities as a wielder of the Six Paths Sage power, was a risk he wasn't willing to take. He opted for strategic reserve, showing only what was necessary, disguising the true magnitude of his strength. His main initial interaction was with Erza Scarlet. She, unlike the others, observed him with a different intensity. Her gazes weren't just curiosity, they were understanding, concern, and echo of the visions he himself had experienced. There was a silent bond between them, forged in the strange dreams that had connected them. Erza, for her part, constantly felt pulled by that connection. The dreams kept coming, less chaotic now, but more intimate, fragments of Naruto's memories, the pain of losing his friends, the burden of his leadership. It was an emotional toll that Titania carried with stoic dignity, though in her unrest accompanied her at every moment. One day, as Naruto watched Natsu and Gray in one of their usual squabbles that ended in explosions and ice shards, a figure approached him. It was Gildarts Clive, Fairy Tale's ace, an imposing man with a scar on his forehead and a presence that radiated power. Gildarts was known as the strongest mage in the guild, his disassembly magic was legendary. And like the master, he had sensed the true potential within Naruto. "Hey, kid. Naruto, right. Gildart smiled, a kind smile but with a knowing glint in his eyes. Makarov told me about you. A chakra user, huh? Fascinating. Naruto nodded, his posture relaxed, but his senses sharpened. Gildart's was different from the others. He felt the immense amount of magic in him, yes, but also a kind of ancient wisdom that made him a keen observer. Yes, Gildart-san. It's my energy. Naruto kept his answer brief, revealing no more than necessary. Gildarts nodded slowly, his eyes narrowed. You know? I've seen many types of magic in my life. Some strange, some powerful. But what I feel in you, it's different. It's not just power. It's pure. Almost primal. It's like the world itself molded you. Naruto felt a chill. Gildarts wasn't just sensing his chakra, he was perceiving the power of the Six Paths Sage, the essence of Higoromo. Makarov's partial revelation, coupled with Gildart's own insight, was uncovering more than Naruto wished. However, Gildarts didn't seem alarmed, only fascinated. Meanwhile, Erza, sitting at a nearby table, sipping her strawberry tea with her usual etiquette, observed the interaction. She had felt the tension in the air when Gildarts approached. With her keen perception, she noticed how Gildarts analyzed Naruto, and how Naruto's expression, though serene, denoted deep containment. She herself could feel Naruto's vast energy, an energy that made her own magic feel different in comparison. It was a sensation that left her perplexed. How powerful is he, really, Naruto Uzumaki? Erza wondered, the question echoing in her mind. He was the boy from her visions, the hero of an apocalyptic war. His power could not be underestimated. And the way Gildarts, the strongest man in the guild, observed him with that mix of respect and curiosity, only confirmed her suspicions. Makarov, from the bar, watched the conversation between Naruto and Gildarts with a mix of pride and a bead of cold sweat running down his forehead. The master knew Gildarts was one of the few who could perceive the true magnitude of Naruto's power. This boy, Makarov thought, taking a sip of his beer. His chakra isn't like our magic, but it's compatible. It adapts. This kid is an enigma, a wild card in our world. I hope it's for the best. Despite his concerns, Makarov's heart, as large as the guild itself, felt a strange affinity for Naruto. He perceived the nobility in his spirit, the will to protect, the very essence that made Fairy Tail great. He decided that, for now, trust would be his answer. Naruto spent his days exploring the guild, learning its customs. He was surprised to see fire and ice mages fight and then eat together, to see a woman drink entire barrels of beer, or a man transform into a beast. It was organized chaos, a dysfunctional family that intrigued him. He still didn't join missions, preferring to observe and understand the flow of magic and the guild's dynamics. He spent time on the training ground, not training publicly, but meditating in secret, delving into the new nature of his power. In his meditation sessions, Naruto continued to explore the integration of his chakra with this world's magic. He could feel Fiore's ley lines, the magical energy flowing through the earth, similar to how he had sensed natural energy in his own world for Sage Mode. He discovered he could absorb and mold this energy to complement his chakra. His creation abilities refined small petals of light that appeared and disappeared at will, currents of air he could materialize, or even, with great effort, small crystals from the ground. It was a subtle manifestation of his power, a combination of Higoromo's ability and Fiore's essence. He was learning to create in this world, not just destroy. Loneliness assailed him in moments of silence. He remembered the faces of his friends Sakura, the constant companion, Suzuki, the rival and brother, Kakashi-sensei, the guide, and Hinata, whose unwavering love had been a beacon in the darkness. The pain of separation was a constant pang, an echo of a world he had left behind. He wondered if he would ever see them again. The idea that this was his new home, his new life, was hard to accept. But the warmth of Fairy Tail, the strange connection with Erza, and the curiosity about this new world, pushed him forward. While Naruto dealt with his adaptation, Lucy Heartfilia, oblivious to everything, was already packing her belongings in Harjan, ready for her journey to Magnolia, a destination that promised to change her life, and unknowingly, that of the young blonde who already awaited her in the heart of the Fairy Tail Guild. Chapter 8: The Ace's Curiosity and a Suit from Another World. Days turned into weeks at Fairy Tail, and Naruto Uzumaki, despite his initial reserve, began to find a peculiar rhythm in the guild's chaos. His presence was an enigma, his origin a closely guarded mystery, but his willingness to help and his unwavering spirit began to earn him the affection of the members. He observed, learned, and, in moments of solitude, meditated, delving deeper into the strange adaptation of his chakra to Fiore's magic. One day, Gildarts Clive's curiosity reached its peak. Fairy Tale's ace, usually a calm and philosophical man, had kept his distance, observing Naruto with a silent intensity. But the magnitude of the power he perceived in the young man, coupled with the mysterious way he contained it, challenged his own understanding. "Hey, Naruto!" Gildart's booming voice resonated through the guild, momentarily halting the usual pandemonium. He approached Naruto, who was conversing with Myra Jane at the bar, his eyes gleaming with unusual mischief. "Makarov told me your chakra is next level, but I haven't seen you use it in action. How about we have a little training session?" The proposal took everyone by surprise. Gildarts rarely engaged in simple training within the guild. His sparrings were events that ended with the guild needing to be rebuilt. Natsu, who was about to launch a fireball at Gray, froze his attack midway, his eyes shining with a mix of envy and excitement. "Gildart-san," Natsu exclaimed, jumping up. "I want to fight Naruto too." "Shut up, Flame Brain," Gray scoffed, though he too watched with curiosity. A cold bead of sweat ran down the foreheads of almost everyone present. For Gildarts, the imposing veteran, to act with the impatience and excitement of Natsu seeking a fight was both hilarious and alarming. Myra Jane chuckled, covering her mouth with her hand. Even Erza, who was approaching the bar with her strawberry tea, raised an eyebrow, her stoic demeanor showing a minuscule crack of astonishment. "Gildarts is acting like Natsu," she thought, a mental image that almost made her spill her tea. Naruto, however, just smiled. This was a type of fight he knew well. A challenge to prove himself, and at the same time, an opportunity to understand the power of this world. He accepted with a nod. "Sure, Gildarts-san. But if we destroy the guild, you're paying for it." Naruto's comment elicited laughter from the guild, and a booming laugh from Gildarts. The atmosphere quickly shifted to the back training ground, the same place where Naruto had arrived. The area cleared, forming an impromptu spectator circle. Before the fight began, Kana Alberona, magic card in hand and a curious expression, approached Naruto. "Hey, kid, one thing. That suit you're wearing." She pointed to the elegant white trench coat Naruto wore, with golden trim and the distinctive leaf symbol on the back. "Where'd you get it?" "It's awesome." The question caught Naruto by surprise. He looked at his outfit. It was true. He no longer wore his torn war clothes, or even the orange tracksuit he used to wear. Now he wore a knee-length white trench coat with a high collar and a subtle gold lining peeking from the edges. The red Uzumaki swirl was on the front, and the unmistakable Konoha leaf emblem was embroidered in gold on the back. Beneath it, a black turtleneck shirt and dark pants. The outfit was impeccable, immaculate, and made him look like a more mature, almost regal figure. "I don't know how to explain this," Naruto thought, feeling a pang of embarrassment. The truth was as strange as his arrival. A small flashback assaulted him. When he first woke in the crystal, before it opened, he felt his clothes torn and covered in war debris. They had been shredded in the final battle, his orange tracksuit a ruin. A surge of unconscious desire to feel worthy, presentable in this new and unknown world, enveloped him. In his state of recovery and with the new Six Paths Sage power flowing, an ability he didn't fully comprehend, his chakra reacted to his desire. Energy swirled around him, and the crystal's particles, combined with his own vital essence, began to reform. It wasn't a jutsu, it was an intuitive manifestation of his creation power adapted to Fiore. The energy of his being, united with that of the magical world, molded matter from nothing. Threads wove, colors formed, and the fabric materialized around his body, elegant and perfect, as if it had always been there. Pure white, gold, black. And the symbol of his home, his village, his legacy, appeared on the back, a reminder of who he was and where he came from. It was an unconscious act of his subconscious, a reflection of his desire to protect his identity and present himself in a new way, worthy of the hero he was. The flashback ended as quickly as it began. Naruto blinked, returning to reality, to the expectant gaze of Kana and the others. How was he going to explain that his clothes had manifested themselves, from his own energy, because his subconscious wanted good clothes? Well, this suit. Naruto scratched his head, his mind desperately searching for an excuse. It's part of my chakra. It manifested with me. I don't know how to explain it well. It's something from my homeland. Naruto's answer, though vague, was accepted with a mix of awe and admiration. To mages, magic that created clothes from nothing wasn't as far-fetched as a dimensional war. Kano whistled. Cool. I want one. The training ground fell silent. Gildarts and Naruto looked at each other. The tension was palpable, not of hostility, but of expectation. The air crackled with both their auras. I won't use my disassembly magic at full power to avoid destroying the city, Kid Gildart said, adopting a combat stance, his fists clenched. But I won't hold back on my strength. And you, don't hold back too much. I sense something huge in you. Naruto nodded, his own golden aura subtly beginning to surround him. It wasn't full Six Paths Sage mode, but a manifestation of his Nine Tails chakra fused with his normal chakra, his enhanced base form. His agility, strength, and speed were already superhuman by Fiore's standards. The fight began with an explosion of speed. Gildarts threw a direct punch, charged with immense force. Naruto dodged the blow with astonishing agility, moving so fast he almost seemed like a golden blur. Gildart's fist slammed into the air where Naruto had been, creating a shockwave that cracked the ground. Incredibly fast, Natsu murmured, eyes wide. Gildarts grinned, a genuine smile of excitement. That's what I like. The battle became a dance of power and agility. Gildarts, using his immense physical strength and magic-imbued punches to create shockwaves and small earthquakes, tried to corner Naruto. The blonde, for his part, moved like the wind, evading each attack by the narrowest margin, his body twisting and pivoting with lethal grace. His blows, though not as destructive as Gildart's, were surprisingly potent, imbued with chakra that made him strike like a battering ram, seeking blind spots or to unbalance his opponent. The sound of their fists colliding resonated like distant thunder. The spectators were mesmerized. Fairy tale mages were used to explosive fights, but this was different. There was a fluidity in Naruto, an efficiency in his movements that was mesmerizing. At one point, Gildarts unleashed a series of rapid blows, cornering Naruto against one of the training pillars. Naruto, anticipating the attack, attempted a quick, almost impulsive evasion move. His body moved with such speed that he seemed to float for an instant, levitating a couple of centimeters off the ground, a residue of Hagoromo's ability, an unconscious manifestation of his Six Paths power that allowed him to subtly manipulate gravity. He dodged the last punch by mere millimeters, and instead of falling to the ground, he remained suspended, defying Fiore's laws of physics. Gildarts, with his sharpened perception, noticed the slight flotation. His eyes widened in a mix of awe and renewed fascination. Gravity manipulation? And without a visible rune or spell? Naruto noticed it too. The slight flotation was an accident, a reflection of his new power. So I can do this here too, he thought, feeling the sage mode energy humming in his veins. He decided it was time to try something else. Something that wouldn't reveal his full potential, but would show another facet of his chakra. Suddenly, the skin around Naruto's eyes took on a faint orange hue, and his pupils transformed into a distinctive pattern, a horizontal circle through the pupil, sage mode. The natural energy of Fiore, which he had been subtly absorbing for days, fused with his chakra. The change was almost imperceptible to most, except for the most sensitive. The atmosphere around Naruto became denser, his presence more imposing, his agility even greater. Oh, Makarov exclaimed from the bar, spilling another drop of beer, his eyes fixed on Naruto. He had noticed the change in energy, a qualitative increase that was astonishing. Erza, her empathetic connection stronger than ever, felt the surge of power in Naruto. It was the same energy she had seen in her visions, the same golden aura that surrounded him on the battlefield of another world. Her heart raced. This is what he's capable of. With Sage Mode activated, though at a discrete level, Naruto moved with even greater speed and precision. Gildart's attacks, which he had previously dodged by millimeters, were now evaded with a fluidity that allowed Naruto to counter more effectively. In an instant, he appeared right beside Gildart's, his fist imbued with a small amount of chakra. It wasn't a Raise-Non, nor a tailed beast punch. It was a direct palm strike, charged with the raw force of Sage Mode, impacting the strongest mage's side. Gildarts coughed, his body sliding back a few feet. The force of the impact was immense, despite Naruto clearly holding back. The breath was knocked out of his lungs. He looked at Naruto, who was already back in a defensive stance, his eyes now back to their normal blue color, the faint orange fading. He had deactivated Sage Mode as quickly as he activated it, a whisper of power, not a declaration. Gildart-san. Natsu gasped, unable to believe what he was seeing. Gildart straightened up, a radiant smile spreading across his face. His body showed no signs of damage, but the impact had been undeniable. He had felt the power, the difference. He hadn't disassembled the blow, he had felt it fully. Ha 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 ha. Gildarts let out a booming laugh that made the ground tremble. Incredible, Naruto. You're formidable. I think I've lost this round. Naruto smiled, his face now relaxed. He had won. He had shown enough power to earn respect, but not so much as to reveal the true magnitude of his abilities. It was a good fight, Gildarts-san, Naruto said, extending a hand to the mage, a gesture of respect between warriors. Gildarts clapped Naruto on the back, a pat that for anyone else would have been a blow that sent them flying. Officially welcome to Fairy Tail, boy. With strength like that, you'll be a great asset. Makarov laughed from the bar, his small figure brimming with pride. He had accepted a mystery, and that mystery had proven to be a formidable force. Chapter 9, The Echo of Instinct and the Unexpected Home. The training ground still vibrated with the residual energy of the battle between Naruto Uzumaki and Gildarts Clive. Bets changed hands as quickly as Naruto had dodged Fairy Tail's ace. Laughter and cheers resounded, celebrating not only the newcomer's unexpected victory but also the excitement of such an exceptional combat. Gildarts, with his usual booming laugh, had congratulated Naruto, and the young man had earned the instant respect of much of the guild. As the crowd of mages began to disperse, heading back towards the warmth of the guild, about 10 meters from the entrance, Naruto stopped abruptly. A sharp pang, like an electric shock, ran through him. It wasn't physical pain, but an overwhelming sensation of internal pressure, as if his own chakra and Fiore's magical energy, now coexisting within him, were fighting for a new balance. His eyes widened enormously, and an inarticulate, guttural, powerful cry escaped his throat, a sound that was more a primitive roar than a human scream. The ground beneath his feet began to tremble. It wasn't a simple earthquake, but a concentrated vibration emanating directly from him. The earth cracked, forming a small mini-crater around his feet. The air condensed, charged with an invisible energy. Naruto brought his hands to his head, then to his chest, hunching over, as if trying to contain an immense force that threatened to tear him apart from within. Naruto! Erza screamed, her protective instinct immediately activated. She ran towards him, her scarlet eyes filled with alarm. Master Makarov, watching from a distance, paled. He had felt something similar during his first encounter with Naruto, but this was different. This was an uncontrolled release of power, an internal metamorphosis that was about to manifest. The other mages stood petrified. Natsu, for the first time, didn't rush into action, but stood agape, feeling an energy that dwarfed his own. Gray was in the same situation. Gildarts, however, reacted. He cautiously approached Naruto, sensing the immensity of the unleashed force. In the midst of his cry, Naruto's golden aura burst forth, brief but violently, blinding everyone for an instant. When the light dissipated, Naruto fell to his knees, then collapsed unconscious in the center of the small crater he himself had created. The earth stopped trembling. Silence hung over the field, broken only by the mage's ragged breathing. Erza reached his side, kneeling quickly. She placed 2 fingers on his neck. His pulse was strong, but irregular. His features were tense, but a strange sense of peace seeped from him, as if the transformation, though violent, had resolved something within him. "He's okay," Erza said, more to herself than to the others. "He's just unconscious." Makarov and Gildarts arrived, observing the young man with a mix of awe and concern. "His power," Gildarts murmured, his voice grave. "It's even vaster than I imagined. An evolution, perhaps. An adaptation. Do you think he'll be unconscious for days?" Myra Jane asked, worried. Makarov shook his head. "I don't think so. This was a readjustment. A deep integration of energies. It could be exhausting, yes, but his body is extraordinarily resilient." And Makarov was right. Naruto slept for approximately 4 hours. The mages, accustomed to the eccentricities of power, took him to the guild's infirmary and waited. When he finally woke, he did so with a gasp, his blue eyes fixed on the ceiling. He felt different. Lighter. His chakra, now fused with Fiore's magic lines, flowed with perfect harmony. He had accessed a new layer of his being, a primitive ultra-instinct, as his body had called it in the fleeting vision of his mind. His control over matter, over creation, had become more intuitive, more natural. The days following the incident in the training ground passed with a new normalcy. The guild, accustomed to extravagances, had accepted Naruto's explosion as just another one of their oddities. His victory over Gildarts and his enigmatic display of power had solidified him as a respected, though still mysterious, figure. He, for his part, felt more integrated, though nostalgia for his home persisted like a wound that wouldn't fully heal. One afternoon, as Naruto watched Erza devour a massive strawberry cake with the seriousness of a samurai in battle, she turned to him with her usual frankness. "Naruto," Erza said, wiping a crumb of cream from the corner of her lips, "I've been thinking. You can't keep sleeping in the forest." Naruto blinked, surprised by the abruptness of the statement. "The forest? But I'm fine there, Erza-san. I can handle myself." An internal laugh shook Naruto. He, the ex-ninja who had slept outdoors on countless missions, who had survived in the most hostile terrains, was now considered incapable of living in a simple forest? It was a facet of this new world that amused him. "Absolutely not," Erza replied, her voice unwavering. "You're a member of Fairy Tail now. Fairy Tail members have a roof over their heads. It's for your own safety and that of others that you're in a proper place." Naruto was about to retort, to explain that he didn't need anything, that he was self-sufficient. His pride, formed by years of forced independence, swelled. "I can take care of myself. I don't need." "Listen to me, Naruto," Erza interrupted, her tone not angry, but with an unyielding firmness that Naruto had already learned to respect. She put down her fork and looked him in the eyes, a strange mix of determination and genuine concern in her gaze. "It's not a question of whether you can or can't. It's a question of you being part of our family now. And family supports each other." The word family hit him again. The same word Makarov had used. The same feeling he had longed for his entire life. Erza saw the hesitation in his blue eyes, the struggle between his forcefully forged independence and the human need for belonging. "I know you're just adapting," Erza continued, her voice lowering a tone, revealing a rare softness. "But I'm not asking you to depend on us. Just to accept a helping hand to get settled. I'll give you a loan. You can pay it back when you feel ready to take missions and earn your own money. It's not a gift. It's support to get you started." Naruto stared at her. Erza wasn't just strong and disciplined, she was deeply compassionate in her own way. He remembered his own battles to be recognized, to have a place to call home. Erza's gesture, so selfless and practical, touched a sensitive chord in him. The Sage of Six Paths had given him power, but Erza offered him a way to put down roots in a new world. "All right, Erza-san," Naruto said, a little resignation, but also genuine gratitude in his voice. "I'll accept your loan. Thank you." Erza smiled, a genuine, warm smile she rarely showed. The tension in her shoulders relaxed. For her, it was important that this young man, whom she had seen suffer so much in her dreams, had a safe place. Erza's unexpected help warmed the guild master's heart. A few hours later, in an apartment rental office in Magnolia. The apartment Erza had helped him rent was modest but cozy. 2 rooms, a small kitchen, with a small living room and a bathroom. It was simple, but it was his own space. Naruto remembered the conversation with Erza, the way she insisted on the loan. "You don't have to worry about paying it back right away," Erza had said, her expression serious, but her eyes kind. "The guild will make sure you have enough missions. I just want you to have a place to come back to, Naruto. A safe place." Naruto smiled to himself, a soft glint in his eyes. Erza's words still brought a sense of warmth to his chest. "Erza-san," Naruto said, returning to reality, where Erza was already engrossed in a slice of strawberry cake. "About the apartment, thank you. Seriously, it means a lot. It's not something I expected." Erza looked up from her cake, a small smile on her lips. "You're welcome, Naruto. That's what family is for." That simple exchange solidified something in Naruto. He had found a home. Not the home he had lost, not Konoha, but a place where he could be himself, where he wouldn't be alone. And in Erza, he had found an unexpected ally, a silent friend who seemed to understand more than she said. With a roof over his head and the guild's acceptance, Naruto was ready to fully immerse himself in the life of Fairy Tail. His powers, his past, his future, everything intertwined in this new adventure. Chapter 10: An Unexpected Haven and the Voice of the Beasts. The atmosphere in Fairy Tail was vibrant, a whirlwind of voices and energy. Naruto had integrated, at least superficially, into the daily bustle. Natsu's challenges, Gray's jokes, Erza's watchful gaze, and Master Makarov's disguised wisdom formed a new landscape for his life. However, the past remained a persistent shadow, and the future, a blank canvas. One morning, as Naruto was having juice at the bar, Myra Jane, with her kind smile, handed him a mission flyer. "Naruto, have you thought about taking a mission? You could join a team. It would be a good way to see the world and earn some money for your apartment. Naruto took the flyer. His eyes scanned the various tasks, finding lost items, capturing bandits, escorting merchants. All seemed mundane compared to saving a world from an immortal goddess. He considered the suggestion. It was an opportunity to explore Fiore, to understand its magic and inhabitants more deeply, but it also meant interacting more closely, revealing more of his abilities. Reserve was his shield, but curiosity and the desire to understand this new world pulled at him. "I'll think about it, Myra-san," he said, a vague promise in his voice. That afternoon, the need for solitude led him back to his apartment. It wasn't the spacious home he had imagined for the 7th Hokage, nor the simple cabin he had shared with Irika. It was a functional space, a modest but his own refuge, paid for by Erza's gesture. Upon entering, silence enveloped him, a stark contrast to the guild's bustle. He dropped onto the nearest chair, the mission flyer forgotten in his hand. His apartment window overlooked a busy street, but he didn't see it. His mind traveled across dimensions, back to Konoha. Kakashi-sensei, had he taken on the burden of Hokage? Sakura, would she be alright, dealing with loss, with the absence of her teammates? Suzuki, what path would he have taken without him to guide or be guided? And Hinata, the image of her gentle smile, her quiet determination, squeezed his heart. Were they all safe? Did they miss him? Guilt, an unwelcome visitor, lingered. He had saved everyone, but at the cost of his own presence. He was a hero, yes, but an uprooted hero. Meditation was his escape, his way to reconnect with his inner self. He sat on the floor in a lotus position, closing his eyes. His mind plunged into his mental space, the vast and familiar underwater landscape of his consciousness. The water was crystal clear, the air clean. Before him, the gigantic cages that once contained the tailed beast stood, not as prisons, but as monuments to a friendship forged in pain. "Karama," Naruto called, his voice echoing in the mental space. The gigantic figure of the 9 tails, a mass of orange chakra and pure energy, emerged from the darkness, its eyes red and piercing. This time, there were no barriers, no hostility. The connection between them was complete, a perfect symbiosis. Karama's deep, rumbling voice resonated in his mind, not with his usual sarcasm, but with a hint of genuine concern. "You look even more troublesome than usual." Naruto smiled. "You too, Karama. How are you feeling?" And the others. From the shadows, the forms of the other tailed beasts began to emerge. Shukaku, Nibi, Sanbai, Yanbai, Gobi, Rokubai, Nanabi, Haxabi. All, now conscious companions in his mental space, manifested as chakra avatars, their own voices resounding in a mental chorus. "The change has been interesting," Jinchuriki Jayaki, the 8 tails, said, his voice calm and wise. "I feel weird. Lighter. And with more room to move," Shukaku exclaimed, his voice shrill and his attitude impulsive. "What happened, Karama? When the crystal absorbed me, I felt something, a change." Karama sat down, his tail gently swaying. "It was the old sage. That last surge of power he gave you, it was more than just chakra. It was the catalyst for your body and soul to adapt to this new world. And in doing so, it affected all of us." The 4 tails, Son Goku, with his wise elder's voice, explained, "Our essences, our very chakra, didn't vanish when crossing the dimensional barrier. On the contrary, they merged even further with you. You're not just our Jinchuriki, we are now an intrinsic part of you, not just sealed, but integrated into your very being. And by integrating with your chakra system, our energy began to resonate with this world's energy." With Fiore's magic Isabu, the 3 tails, added, "Our powers have amplified." Kome, the 7 tails, exclaimed, "It's like our chakra doubled, but without splitting it. And that excess, it flows into you, Jinchuriki." Naruto processed the information. "So, all your power has gotten stronger, and that extra strength is being transferred to me? Without affecting you?" "Exactly," Karama confirmed, a fierce grin on his fox face. "We're stronger, and you're even stronger than you were in our dimension. It's a symbiosis the old sage never anticipated, a side effect of your journey and his last gift." The revelation was astounding. The sage's power, amplified by the integration of the tailed beasts and the resonance with Fiore's magic. It was a force he could barely comprehend, limitless potential. This meant his transformations, his jutsus, his brute strength, everything was now exponentially more potent. And his creation abilities, that primitive ultra instinct he had experienced in the fight with Gildarts, were just the tip of the iceberg. You are evolving, Naruto Saiken, the Six Tails, said, his voice calm. You are not just a ninja. You are something new. A bridge between worlds. The meditation ended, but the revelation stayed with him. The weight of his loneliness didn't disappear, but the immensity of his power and the silent company of the tailed beasts gave him new strength. The next day, Naruto felt refreshed. The conversation with the tailed beasts and the understanding of his new power had given him renewed purpose. Curiosity about this new world sparked. He decided to spend the day exploring Magnolia. He walked the cobblestone streets, observing the colorful shops, the aromas of freshly baked bread and coffee. He saw mages performing small tricks for children, street performers with illusions, and acrobats defying gravity. It was such a vivid contrast to the devastated battlefields, the ruined villages, and the lives consumed by war. He felt like a true tourist, an observer, absorbing every detail. He visited the market, trying strange fruits and local sweets. He stopped by the river, watching the tranquil flow of the water, so different from the maelstrom of his own life. As he strolled, his mind continued to assimilate this world's magic. He could feel the magic currents in the air, perceive people's magic signatures, an extension of his sage mode that was now innate. It was as if he could see the world on a new layer, a translucent veil of magical energy that surrounded everything. The people of Fiore, noisy and passionate, reminded him of the vitality of his own village, before pain and war consumed it. As evening fell, Naruto found himself back at the guild doors. The decision was made. It was no longer time to observe from a distance. It was time to act. He had immense power, a new understanding of himself, and a family of mages who, despite not fully understanding him, had accepted him. He entered the guild, the usual bustle greeting him like an old friend. He headed to the mission board, his eyes seeking something that wasn't too complicated, something that would allow him to test his abilities without drawing too much attention. His gaze landed on one in particular: eliminate a bandit gang in Oak Forest. Reward, 100,000 jewels. It seemed like a simple mission, perfect for a first approach. Hey, Myra-san, Naruto called from the board, tearing off the mission flyer. I'll take this one. Myra Jane smiled, her expression gentle and encouraging. Excellent, Naruto. Are you going solo or looking for a team? Naruto smiled, his gaze fixed on the flyer. He had moved from forced solitude to a new form of independence. For now, I'll go alone. I need some fresh air. Chapter 11: The Shadow of the Forest and the Farewell of a Giant. Naruto Uzumaki left the guild with the mission flyer in hand. The afternoon sun began to tint the sky with shades of orange and purple, casting long shadows over the streets of Magnolia. He felt light, his spirit renewed by a new purpose. The loneliness hadn't vanished, but Fairy Tail's acceptance and the reaffirmation of his power had given him a fresh sense of direction. The mission to eliminate the bandits in Oak Forest was a modest start, but a start nonetheless. Just as he was about to take the path leading out of town, a deep, familiar voice stopped him. Hey, Naruto! Naruto turned to see Gildarts Clive walking towards him, with his usual carefree stride. Fairy Tail's ace carried a backpack slung over his shoulder and a serious expression, though with an unusual glint in his eyes. Gildart-san, Naruto said, a little surprised. Gildart stopped in front of him, his imposing figure casting a long shadow. Glad I caught you. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I have a mission. A very long one. Naruto nodded, his mind connecting the dots. He had heard rumors about long-term missions that the strongest mages took. A mission? Where are you going? Gildart smiled, a complex smile. I'm going on the 100-year quest. It's a contract no mage on the continent has completed. A challenge that has remained untouched for a century. I need to see if I can do it. The magnitude of the challenge resonated with Naruto. 100-year mission. That was another scale of difficulty. In its own way, this world had its own legendary dangers. I see, Naruto said, respect in his voice. Gildarts clapped Naruto on the shoulder, a gentle pat for him, but one that still made the young man feel the impact. Take care, Naruto. And don't hold back too much. This guild needs strong people. And kind souls. You have both. I trust you'll do great things here. Gildarts paused, his gaze deep, scrutinizing. And, even if your power is a mystery to me, I can feel its magnitude. Don't let the past hold you back. You're a force of nature, boy. Use that to protect. Naruto looked into his eyes. Gildart's words echoed his own path, his own creed. It was the same philosophy that had guided his life. "I will, Gildart-san," Naruto promised, renewed determination in his voice. Gildarts nodded, a final smile on his face, then turned and walked away, his figure disappearing into the distance as the sun set. Naruto watched the strongest mage of Fairy Tail depart, feeling a strange connection with him, as if they were both solitary travelers on legendary paths. Gildart's departure marked the beginning of a new phase for Naruto and the guild, a phase in which he, unknowingly, would begin to occupy a crucial space. Oak Forest was dense and ancient, its gigantic trees casting a premature darkness under the twilight. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth and decaying leaves. Naruto moved through the foliage with the discretion and stealth of an experienced shinobi, his steps almost inaudible on the carpet of fallen leaves. His perception, amplified by his newly integrated six-path sage power, allowed him to sense the bandits' presence long before he saw them. It wasn't just their chakra, but also their magic signatures, faint but detectable to him. He located their camp quickly. It was an improvised clearing, lit by a crackling bonfire. A group of 10 men, rough and armed with chipped swords and some rudimentary magic wands, talked loudly, boasting of their misdeeds. He could sense their intentions, the malice emanating from them. Naruto hid behind a centuries-old tree, observing. He could overwhelm them with a burst of his chakra, but he didn't want to draw unnecessary attention to the exact nature of his abilities. This was a simple mission, and he wanted to resolve it efficiently, without excess. He opted for agility and enhanced physical strength, complemented by the subtle use of his chakra. He leaped from his hidden position, landing in the center of the camp with the grace of a predator. His appearance was so sudden that the bandits took a second to react. "Hey, who are you?" one of them growled, his sword already drawn. Naruto didn't answer. Instead, he launched his attack. His speed was astonishing, a mere blur to the bandits' eyes. The first blow was a punch charged with a slight infusion of chakra, impacting a bandit's stomach. The man doubled over, the air leaving his lungs, before falling unconscious. There was no malice in the blow, just efficiency. Another bandit, a mage with a wand, tried to cast a fire spell. Naruto, with his six-path sage sense, had already anticipated the movement. In a blink, he appeared behind the mage and delivered a precise blow to the back of his neck, knocking him out before he could utter the incantation. The fight was a choreography of evasion and precise strikes. Naruto moved among the bandits, dodging sword swings and basic magic bursts with astonishing ease. His agility was so superior that the bandits, slow and clumsy by comparison, hit each other in their attempts to strike him. One bandit tried to grab him, but Naruto slipped out of his grasp with a flexibility that defied logic, and then, with a slight chakra boost in his legs, jumped over another bandit's head, using him as a springboard to propel himself and land behind a third, whom he knocked out with a blow to the back. Two bandits coordinated, attempting to flank him. Naruto smiled. This was easy. While one charged with his sword, the other tried a binding spell. Naruto activated a minuscule amount of chakra in his feet, allowing him to make an extraordinary leap that carried him over the head of the bandit with the sword. As he hovered in the air for an instant, his sight caught the mage's movement. From above, Naruto brought down an axe kick with his hand, impacting the crown of the sword-wielding bandit's head, sending him face-first to the ground. The remaining mage, terrified, tried to flee, but Naruto was already there, his hand on the man's shoulder. "You won't escape," the bandit screamed, trying to cast one last spell. But Naruto gave him no time. A quick blow to a pressure point rendered him unconscious. In less than 3 minutes, all 10 bandits lay unconscious in the clearing, with no serious injuries, only the result of overwhelming force and precision. Naruto tied them with their own ropes, ensuring they wouldn't escape. He had used his chakra, yes, but in such a subtle and efficient way that to any observer not versed in ninja arts, it would appear to be simple superhuman speed and strength. No one had seen a Rasengan, nor a shadow clone jutsu, much less full sage mode. He had kept his promise of reserve. He collected the few jewels scattered around the camp, the proof of the mission, and made sure the bandits were safely secured for the authorities to pick them up. The sky had grown completely dark, stars shining over Oak Forest. The mission was complete. It was simple, yes, but it had given him the opportunity to once again feel the thrill of combat, the satisfaction of protecting others, and a reaffirmation of his power in this new world. He returned to Magnolia under the moonlight, the cool air filling his lungs. He felt a little closer to this world, one step more integrated into the life of Fairy Tail. Chapter 12: Unexpected Agility and the Course of the Future. Naruto Uzumaki moved like a golden blur through Oak Forest. The full moon, a silver disk in the sky, illuminated his path, but his own speed created a streak in the landscape. He had completed the mission, and an unusual haste gripped him. It wasn't just the desire to report and get paid, it was the thrill of an unexpected discovery he had made upon leaving the bandit camp. As he hurried back to Magnolia, he felt the vibration of his chakra, that new and subtle connection to Fiore's energy. It wasn't the precise control of sage mode levitation, nor brute force. It was something more fundamental. With each stride he took, his body felt lighter, more connected to the earth. Suddenly, on an impulse, he infused an infinitesimal amount of his chakra and the ambient magical energy into the soles of his feet, not to run on water or climb walls, but to boost the impact of his stride on the ground. The result was astonishing. With each step, he felt a magnetic repulsion against the ground, propelling him forward with an explosive speed that surpassed even his already impressive ninja capabilities. It was as if the earth itself was pushing him. Instead of simply running, Naruto was gliding over the terrain, almost flying low to the ground, his feet barely touching the forest foliage. Trees passed by as green and black blurs. His vision sharpened, his reflexes skyrocketed, allowing him to effortlessly dodge trunks and rocks. Incredible! Naruto exclaimed, pure joy resonating in his voice. His blue eyes shone with childlike excitement. This was more than just running fast, it was a propulsion ability that combined his chakra with the local magic, another manifestation of how his power was adapting. He could use this to transport things, to deliver messages, or even as a form of business. The idea of an ultra-fast delivery service crossed his mind, and a mischievous grin, so familiar from his younger days, spread across his face. The future in this world, suddenly, seemed a little brighter, more full of possibilities. He laughed out loud, a genuine, liberating laugh. The idea that his speed could become a source of income for the guild, and for himself, was exciting. The loneliness, for a moment, dissipated before the fervor of novelty. In record time, Naruto traversed the forest and reached the outskirts of Magnolia. The euphoria of his discovery propelled him at a speed he barely managed to control as he entered the more populated streets. He braked abruptly before colliding with a fruit stand, causing some apples to tumble to the ground. A couple of passers-by stared at him in astonishment at his speed. Naruto could only offer a quick apology and continue on his way, laughing at his own clumsiness. The Fairy Tail Guild was surprisingly quiet for late evening, with only a few lingering members at the bar. Myra Jane was still there, wiping glasses with her usual efficiency and kind smile. Seeing Naruto enter, her face lit up. "Naruto! You're back already. How was the mission?" Naruto approached the bar, a radiant smile on his face. "It was a piece of cake, Myra-san. The bandits are tied up and waiting for the authorities. Here's the proof." He handed her the bag with the jewels. Myra Jane took the bag, weighing it in her hand. "Excellent. I'll pay you the reward right away." With a swift movement, she counted the jewels and handed them to Naruto, along with a receipt. "Well done. You're really fast, Naruto. You only left a few hours ago." Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, a little embarrassed. Yeah, let's just say, I found a shortcut." Myra Jane looked at him curiously, but didn't pry. In Fairy Tail, shortcuts could be anything from a secret route to a new magical manifestation. The reward, 100,000 jewels, was a considerable amount. Naruto carefully put it away, thinking of Erza's loan. "Thanks, Myra-san," Naruto said. As he headed to an empty table, his thoughts overwhelmed him. The excitement of his new ability mingled with reflection. He had accomplished something, he had earned money, he had an apartment. He was part of a guild. But the question of his future in this world, in Fiore, weighed on him. What will I do now? He wondered. He had saved his world, but that world was no longer his. His home, Konoha, was a distant memory. His friends, his family, his teachers, all were on the other side of a dimensional barrier he didn't know how to cross. The loneliness, which he had managed to dispel with the excitement of the mission and the discovery, returned strongly in the silence of the guild. He looked around. The guild, though noisy and chaotic, was a place of belonging. He saw Natsu and Gray, who were currently in a kind of truce, chatting with Elfman and Happy. He saw Kana laughing with Levi. He saw the warmth in Miragina's eyes. And he remembered the concern in Erza's eyes, and Master Makarov's acceptance. "I'm not alone," he reminded himself. "I have a place here. For now." But his ambition, the same ambition that had driven him to become Hokage, remained latent. Could he be a Hokage in this world? Could he be the strongest mage, the one who protected everyone? Ideas slowly formed in his mind. His power was immense, and it was adapting. He could be a great mage. He could be an important figure in fairy tale. Perhaps, just perhaps, he could find a way to use his abilities to help this world in ways that Fiore's magic couldn't. The idea of the fast delivery service returned to his mind. It was small, yes, but it was a start. A way to contribute, to be useful. Naruto stood up from the table, a new glint of determination in his eyes. He had a mission to fulfill here. Not just a mission against bandits, but the mission to forge a new path for himself, to find his own place, to be the hero this world might need, no matter how different it was. And perhaps, just perhaps, to find peace for his soul. Chapter 13: A Sage's Logic and the Fox's Flight. The morning sun filtered through Naruto's apartment window, but his mind was already miles away, soaring through the skies of Fiore. The bandit mission had been a mere warm-up, a proof of concept. The truly exciting part had been his new propulsion power, that sensation of gliding over the ground as if the air itself pushed him. The idea of an ultra-fast delivery business had taken root in his mind, a spark igniting his dormant ambition. After a quick breakfast and his usual visit to the guild for the morning bustle, Naruto decided it was time for serious experimentation. He didn't want to draw attention, so he headed to the outskirts of Magnolia, towards a deeper part of Oak Forest, far from frequented paths and curious mage eyes. He found a hidden clearing, surrounded by tall trees that offered privacy. There, Naruto took a deep breath, concentrating. He remembered that fleeting instant in his fight with Gildarts, when his body had floated for a second. With his new, deep connection to Fiore's energy, he tried to replicate the sensation. He infused his chakra, now merged with the ambient magic, into his feet, but this time, with the intention of completely defying gravity. At first, it was a bit clumsy. He rose a few inches, then fell. But Naruto was a master of perseverance. He remembered how he had learned to climb trees without hands, how he had mastered the Residing. With each attempt, he felt the connection to the air, to the world's energy. Concentration, control, and the will to go further. Little by little, the feeling of being tied to the ground lessened. He rose, first a meter, then 2, 5, 10. There he was, floating several meters above the ground, completely stable. The breeze caressed him, the world looked different from above. A huge smile spread across his face. He could fly. A laugh resonated in the clearing. It wasn't a child's unrestrained laughter, but a deeper, more conscious one. Incredible! I'm a bird, Naruto exclaimed, spinning in the air. The euphoria was contagious, even in the silence of the forest. He sat in the air, in a lotus position, closing his eyes to reflect. His mind, now sharper, more connected, felt a clarity he had never experienced before. It wasn't just power, it was an expansion of his own intellect, an ability to see patterns, to connect ideas, an insight that went beyond shinobi intuition. Karama, Naruto called in his mental space, his voice full of excitement. Can you believe it? I can fly. And I feel smarter. Like I can solve any puzzle. The gigantic figure of the nine-tailed fox materialized in front of him, its eyes narrowed. I've noticed, Gaki. Your mind has matured forcefully. The old sage's power and the integration with this world's energy have given you an insight you lacked before. You're no longer the usual blockhead. Naruto chuckled, a little offended, but he couldn't deny the truth. Hey, I wasn't a complete idiot either. But it's true, I'm getting business ideas. Can you imagine? An ultra-fast delivery company. The other tailed beasts materialized, their avatars watching with curiosity. Business, Jinchuriki? That's a peculiar leap, Jayaki, the eight tails, said with his usual calm. Naruto scratched the back of his head. But it's awesome. And speaking of awesome, I was so ignorant when I was little. Naruto's declaration made the tailed beasts look at each other skeptically. You're just realizing that now, Gaki? You always were, Kurama grumbled, though with an amused tone. No, seriously. Shadow clones. I could have used them to train 10 times faster. To gather information. To study. I always just used them for fighting or pranks. What a waste. The tailed beasts were silent for a moment. Then, a series of mental gasps swept through the space. He's right, Kome, the seven tails, exclaimed. We never thought of that. The Gaki, has he grown up? Saiken, the six tails, murmured with a note of surprise. It's true. You could have been a genius with that. Shukaku, the one-tail, complained, as if the regret for missed opportunities was his own. A wave of healthy mental bullying swept over Naruto, with the tailed beasts joking about his late enlightenment. Naruto laughed, happy that, despite the revelation of his intelligence, his prankster essence remained intact. But now I know, Naruto declared, his eyes shining with new determination. I'm going to use that wisdom. His mind was already on the plan. He would use shadow clones for deliveries and to take missions simultaneously. And his ground traversal ability, that kind of magnetism or repulsion with the earth, would be the key to speed. My idea, he explained to the tailed beasts, who listened attentively, is to offer a high-speed delivery service to regions and cities far from Magnolia. Nearby cities already have merchants and messengers. I don't want to take business away from local mages and traders, but going to very distant places is dangerous and costly. There's barely any money for someone to risk it. That's where I come in. And why you? Son Goku asked. Because I have the power to defend myself, and the speed to reach those places in record time. I could carry medicines, urgent messages, valuable packages. I'd make several clones to take multiple missions at once, and that way, more profit for the guild and for me. The idea was bold, practical, and, in its own way, very Naruto, using his abilities to help others and, incidentally, earn money. A rather cunning idea, Kurama admitted, with barely disguised respect in his voice. But don't overdo it. Too many clones can be exhausting, and you won't want to monopolize all the missions. Isn't that how this guild works? Naruto smiled. Kurama was right. Despite his enthusiasm, he shouldn't forget the essence of fairy tale. You're right, Kurama. I don't want to take opportunities away from my comrades. I'll only take missions that no one else can or wants to take because they're too dangerous or distant, and maybe only 2 or 3 clones at a time. I don't want to worry, master. With that resolution, Naruto focused again on his flight. Practice made perfect. At first, he moved at 10 kilometers per hour, then 20, 50. With each minute, his control improved, his body adapting to the flow of chakra and magic synchronizing more and more. The forest clearing became his personal takeoff and landing strip. He could fly in a straight line, turn in the air, ascend and descend with precision. The goal was to master it for his future business. By the end of his session, Naruto managed to reach surprising speeds, moving at about 300 kilometers per hour at low altitude, a true lightning bolt over the landscape. He felt ready. He had a mission, a home, and now, a clear idea of how he would fit into this new world. Loneliness hadn't completely left him, but it was being replaced by purpose, by the excitement of forging a new path, a future as fairy tale's fast delivery hero. This chapter elaborates on Naruto's newfound flight abilities, his unique business ideas, and the tailed beast's surprising insights. It also establishes his incredible new power levels. Chapter 14, Impossible Peaks, Brilliant Ideas, and the Fox's Warning. Naruto's new propulsion ability had ignited a spark in his mind. The idea of an ultra-fast delivery service to distant cities wasn't just a means to earn jewels, but a way to contribute, to forge a purpose in this world. But his brain, now sharper and more strategic, didn't stop there. As he walked back to his apartment after the mission, his mind buzzed with new business concepts. A cipher-breaking service, a place to offer services for deciphering ancient documents or coded messages, leveraging his vast experience in shinobi espionage and seals. He would task his guildmates to travel to distant places when their missions took them there to gather information or establish contacts. The idea of an intelligence and logistics network was forming, a venture that would combine the guild's power with his own unique abilities. How does the system work here? He wondered. How are the continents structured? Who are the leaders? He needed to research. The guild library would be a good starting point, and Makarov, a beacon of knowledge. Ideas came rapidly, almost embracing him. His brain worked at a feverish pace. The euphoria of the mission and the new ideas led him back to the clearing in Oak Forest. Flight practice was imperative. He didn't just want speed, he wanted height. He wanted to know how high he could go. Naruto rose, propelling himself with his chakra and Fiore's energy. He ascended past the treetops, past the clouds, past the warm air layer. The air grew colder, thinner. But Naruto kept ascending, his body enveloped in a faint golden aura, a shield against the cold and pressure. Incredible! A human shouldn't be able to go that high. Shukaku's voice echoed in his mind, surprised. At this height, any normal human's blood would freeze, their lungs collapse, Jayaki commented, with a note of astonishment. Naruto continued to ascend, the planet's curvature beginning to become visible, the land of Fiore stretching beneath him like a living map. He felt invincible, the immensity of space expanding his own mind. Gaki, stop. Stop now. Kurama's voice, unusually grave and urgent, resonated in his mind, making the other tailed beasts fall silent. Naruto stopped dead, floating at a dizzying height. What's wrong, Kurama? Why so serious? Don't be an idiot. You've exceeded the limits of this planet. Once you pass the stratosphere, oxygen becomes almost non-existent. A normal human would die from oxygen starvation or decompression. Even you, with all that power, are not immune to the fundamental laws of space biology. Kurama's warning hit him like a lightning bolt. Naruto looked around, the dark blue of space beginning to invade the sky, the immensity of the void. His face reflected a mix of awe and a hint of fear. Kurama's words made him reflect. Could I, like Higoromo at Satsuki, be able to breathe in space? The question floated in his mind. Grandpa, a celestial being, a god. Was he, Naruto, capable of transcending those biological barriers thanks to the Sage of Six Paths legacy? The tailed beasts, observing his thoughts, also wondered. If Naruto was a bridge between worlds, could he also be a bridge between planetary life and the cosmic void? Naruto remained captivated by the view. The planet, a vibrant sphere of colors beneath him, was a majestic sight. From here, his home world seemed so close and, at the same time, so unreachable. Would my world be there, somewhere in that immense space? Could I reach it if I knew where to look? The idea was tempting, but reality was a blow. He was lost. Without coordinates, without guides. Returning was, for now, a pipe dream. He decided to descend. As he slowly descended, enjoying the majestic view of Fiore expanding beneath him, his thoughts returned to his business ideas. The ability to fly at great heights and his speed gave him an unparalleled advantage. But then, a thought made him frown. He remembered the conversation with the tailed beasts about shadow clones and how he had been ignorant for not using them for training. I disagree, Naruto thought, landing softly in the clearing. It's not just that I could have used them for training. It's that now I have more control over my power. My stamina is much greater. What if the shadow clones also increased their stamina? The idea excited him. Before, creating 1,000 clones was an effort that left him exhausted. Now, his chakra was so vast, and his control so finely tuned, that the limitation was no longer energy, but efficiency. He concentrated, visualizing the technique. Wait! Don't do it! Kurama's booming voice resonated in his mind, so loud and sudden that Naruto jumped, almost falling over. What the hell, Kurama? Naruto exclaimed, clutching his chest. You almost scared the heart out of me. What's wrong with you? Why did you stop me? I was going to use the clones. You know I can do it. I have the stamina for 1,000 clones. I've done it my whole life. Kurama scoffed, his patience tested. It's not about stamina, Gaki. It's the change. Haven't you really noticed the huge change you've undergone? Are you aware of the being you've become? Because if so, I think you're about to make a huge mistake. The other tailed beasts nodded mentally, some with expressions of alarm. If you release the power, even a basic part of your base power, you're going to draw tremendous attention. There's a mage nearby, I sense them. Not evil, not particularly powerful, maybe a wandering mage or a scout. But it's not the time for a demonstration like that. Not yet. Your base power, Jinchuriki, is now equivalent to the power of a full-tailed beast in your world. The power of Saiken, Kurama said, his voice serious. Naruto blinked, the information hitting him with the force of a punch. What? My base power, is it that of a six-tails? Saiken? He mentally looked at the six-tails, who shrugged with an "it is what it is" expression. That much? Naruto gasped. The magnitude of the revelation left him breathless. He had always been the weakest at first, then the hardest worker. Now, whoa, I didn't realize that. Come to think of it, if I make the comparisons, I think I could actually win. Saiken, the six-tails, interjected with a touch of pride. That was in our world. Now my power has also grown due to the integration. If you faced me now with only your base power, it would be much harder to defeat me. I am not the same as before. Kurama interrupted the potential argument between Naruto and Saiken. The point is, Gaki, you're ridiculously powerful now. If you use 100% of your base power uncontrollably, the shock will be insane. You'll make a crater the size of a lake, and you'll attract all the dark mages and the council of this continent. Experiment little by little. I recommend not going over 30 or 35% of your base power for any technique right now. That way, you'll keep a low profile and avoid catastrophes. Naruto nodded, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The warning was clear. It wasn't a question of whether he could, but whether he should. Understood, Naruto said. He concentrated again, his mind recalculating. He wanted to test the clone's stamina, yes, but with caution. He concentrated, his chakra flowing with astounding ease. He visualized the shadow clone technique, but this time, limiting the energy output to a modest 30% of his base power. It wasn't fine control of the amount of chakra per clone, but the magnitude of the total release. His intention was simply to see if the clone's stamina had increased, not to break the earth. With a thought, without the need for hand signs, a vast number of identical copies of Naruto Uzumaki, each in his elegant white and gold trench coat, appeared around him. The air crackled. Thousands of Narutos covered a radius of about 8 kilometers, filling the clearing and spreading among the forest trees. The sight was overwhelming, a tide of blonde hair and white suits. Naruto and the tailed beasts, including Kurama, stood agape. The intention had been a controlled demonstration, but the efficiency and scale of the technique had exceeded all expectations. Kurama expected hundreds, perhaps a few thousand, not tens of thousands covering such a vast area. By all the heavens, Kurama exclaimed, surprised. I didn't expect this. Your control is too good, Geki. And your chakra. Naruto, overcoming his own astonishment, decided to test his clone's stamina. He gave a mental command, and some of the clones approached. Naruto threw powerful punches at them, controlling his strength. 1 punch. 2. 3. The clones held. Up to 10 very strong punches, each equivalent to an A-class mage's punch, and the clones were still there, firm. At the 11th, they dispersed in a puff of smoke. Yes, Naruto exclaimed, his fist in the air. Stamina has increased. This is great. A new idea, even bolder, formed in his mind. He wanted to test the limit of his pure strength in this world. It was risky, yes, but if he was going to be a protector here, he needed to understand his destructive capabilities. Not with a raise-non, nor a tailed beast bomb. A simple punch. He walked to the largest and sturdiest tree in the clearing, a centuries-old oak with a trunk several meters wide. He took a deep breath. This time, he would activate Sage Mode, not for discretion, but for a controlled demonstration of power. Orange marks appeared around his eyes, his pupils becoming horizontal. The golden aura that always enveloped him in this mode intensified. His base power was equivalent to that of a six-tails. Sage Mode, in his world, multiplied his power by 10. Here, with the integration with Fiore's magic, the amplification was even greater, perhaps by 15 or 20. He would opt for a prudent factor of x15, not to overestimate, but to get a devastating result. A base power of a tailed beast x15. It was the power of a cataclysm. Naruto positioned himself. A single punch, concentrating all the Sage Mode force in his arm. With a primal scream that echoed through the forest, he launched his fist at the tree. The impact was not a sound, but a sonic explosion. The air itself tore apart. The centuries-old oak not only broke apart, it pulverized into microparticles, as if it had never existed. The force of the blow continued, an unstoppable shockwave that swept away everything in its path. The ground trembled, ripped open, and a wave of earth rose in a radius of about 5 kilometers, uprooting trees, overturning rocks, and pulverizing the terrain in an instant devastation. A crater began to form at the point of impact, expanding rapidly from 1 meter to 4 meters, 8 meters, 20, 50 meters wide, deepening as the force expanded, creating a perfect scar in the earth. The shockwave continued, leaving a trail of destruction 5 kilometers long in the forest, a desolate corridor of plowed earth. Naruto stood in the center of the crater, his arms still extended, Sage Mode slowly dissipating. The silence that followed the explosion was overwhelming. He looked at the devastation, his eyes wide with astonishment. The tailed beasts, in his mental space, were silent. They had seen his power, but the manifestation in this world, with his amplified energy, was even more impactful. Damn, Geki, Kurama's voice, a hoarse whisper in his mind, resonated with a mix of horror and respect. That was insane. Naruto could only swallow. He had seriously underestimated the increase in his power. He was a weapon of mass destruction. The mission to take care of this world, and to contain himself, became clearer than ever. It was clear that he would have to be extremely careful with the use of his strength in this new continent. Chapter 15, The Alarm of a Power and the Accelerated Return. The silence in the oak forest clearing was deafening, broken only by the whistling wind through the devastated trees. Naruto stood in the center of the crater, his arms still extended, sage mode dissipating. The scale of the destruction left him breathless. 5 kilometers of forest razed by a single punch, a 50-meter wide crater as its epicenter. The promise he had made to himself about containing his power now resonated with brutal urgency. Idiot, Gaki. Kurama's voice roared in his mind, this time with no trace of mockery, only controlled fury. I warned you. I told you not to overdo it. Look what you did. Naruto couldn't retort. Guilt hit him with the force of his own punch. He had been reckless, impulsive, once again. His sharper brain screamed the magnitude of the error. Such an immense and destructive magic trail would leave a mark, a signature. And Kurama was right, there was a mage nearby. There's a wandering mage about 3 kilometers away. Kurama's voice was urgent. Not powerful, but they'll feel this. They'll feel the resonance of a power that isn't from this world. You have to move, now. The alarm ignited a fire in Naruto. He couldn't afford to be discovered like this. He needed to disappear, to return to Magnolia before any curious eye saw him. The city was a considerable distance away, a journey that for a normal human would take more than 6 to 8 hours on foot, or about 3 hours at a brisk pace for an average mage. For the fastest mages or those with teleportation magic, it could be about 2.5 hours. But Naruto was no normal mage. He concentrated, activating his new propulsion ability to the maximum. His body became a golden blur. The ground blurred beneath his feet as he propelled himself with a magnetic force against the earth. In an instant, the devastated clearing was left behind. Trees passed by as blurry lines. His speed was unprecedented, his mind focused only on one goal, the fairy tale guild. He ran. No, he flew low to the ground. The distance of several kilometers, which for others was a journey of hours, compressed into a fraction of time. He ignored the friction of the air, the impact of his speed. Every fiber of his being was dedicated to propulsion. The journey, which at a normal pace in this world would take at least 6 hours, considering the fastest mages would take 2.5 hours, Naruto covered in an astonishing amount of time. The air whistled around him. In barely a minute, Magnolia's silhouette appeared on the horizon. An unthinkable record for any inhabitant of Fiore. He braked abruptly on the outskirts of the city, trying to go unnoticed, but his speed had been so extreme that his body still trembled with the effort. His lungs burned, not from lack of air, but from the superhuman exertion. He ran the last few blocks to the guild, his heart pounding 1,000 beats per hour, not from physical exhaustion, but from the adrenaline of the near discovery and the rush. The guild door rapidly approached. The afternoon light had already faded, giving way to the darkness of night, and the guild, at this hour, would already be full of members dining and drinking. Precisely at that moment, Myra Jane Strauss, with her eternal smile, opened the guild door to see off a couple of mages heading out on a night mission. Naruto, still at dizzying speed, couldn't brake completely. "Excuse me," Naruto yelled, a mere whisper in the gale he was. Myra Jane, with her surprising reflexes, barely had time to react. She saw a golden, blonde blur. Her smile froze on her face. Naruto managed to maneuver at the last second, passing like lightning inches from her, his white cloak violently billowing. The displaced air ruffled Miragina's hair, and a gust of wind hit her, making her stumble. Naruto, still with inertia, crashed with a brutal clang into two of the guild's largest tables, splintering them into wood shards and sending mugs and chairs flying through the air. The few mages remaining in the hall gasped, their gazes fixed on the blonde, who now lay on the floor, surrounded by debris. Myra Jane, composing herself, looked at the scene, her mouth agape in astonishment. Naruto got up, dusting himself off, looking disheveled and more than agitated. His hair was messy, and his blue eyes, though full of apology, still shone with the adrenaline of his journey. "I'm sorry, Myra-san," Naruto exclaimed, raising his hands in surrender, as sweat beaded on his forehead. The mission's complete. I was really fast. I think I took a shortcut." The guild fell into a deathly silence, observing the scene. The look of surprise turned into awe. They had seen Naruto win against guildarts, but this speed? And that impact? It wasn't brute strength that surprised them now, but the extreme speed with which he had arrived. Agitated, Naruto. Erza Scarlet, who had been sitting at a nearby table and had witnessed the entire entrance, approached, her voice unusually flat, but her scarlet eyes, which had caught the golden aura and the almost absurd speed, were filled with a mix of stupefaction and new concern. She had felt the urgency in his return, the power signature he had left in the forest. This boy was an enigma, a whirlwind of unparalleled power. And what he had done in the forest, though she didn't know for sure, was something no mage in Fiore, not even Gildarts, could replicate. The secret of his power was becoming increasingly evident, and its containment, more difficult. Chapter 16, Sweeping Consequences and Novel Strategies. Naruto's thunderous impact against fairy tales tables echoed through the now silent guild. Wood splinters and remnants of beer mugs littered the floor, witnesses to the blonde's inelegant landing. Naruto brushed himself off, his nervous smile failing to hide the clear agitation in his eyes. His attempt at discretion had ended in chaos that rivaled one of Natsu and Gray's usual fights, only this time, he was the culprit. Myra Jane, who had narrowly avoided being run over, could only watch with a mix of surprise and amusement. Erza, her scarlet gaze fixed on him, approached, her expression unreadable to most, but which Naruto, with his now keen perception, interpreted as deep concern and a hint of imminent scolding. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," Naruto exclaimed, raising his hands. Adrenaline still coursed through his veins, the memory of the crater in the forest and the nearby wandering mage weighing on him. "The mission's complete. I was really fast. I think I shortened the way a little too much." Master Makarov, who had witnessed the scene from the bar, sighed, his small body trembling with a mixture of exasperation and amusement. He had felt the surge of power in the forest, a magnitude that only Gildarts and he could perceive so clearly. And now, this landing. It was proof that the boy was an uncontrollable force if he wasn't taught to channel his power in this new environment. "Naruto," Makarov's voice, though not booming, possessed an authority that silenced the few who were beginning to murmur. "I'm glad you completed your mission, but this is the guild, not a meteor landing zone." Natsu, however, couldn't contain his excitement. "What speed, Naruto! You're incredible. I'd like to see how fast you are against me." Gray scoffed. "Idiot, don't ask him for a fight now. He'd wreck the whole guild." Erza's gaze landed on Naruto. "Your shortcuts seem to be quite destructive. I'm afraid we'll have to discuss compensation for the damages." Naruto flinched. "Oh, right. I'll pay for it. Really. The reward is good, and if I take more missions, I can pay it back fast." The sincerity in his voice softened the tension. Myra Jane, with a smile, began cleaning up the mess with surprising efficiency. "Don't worry about that now," Naruto Makarov said, descending from the bar with a small jump. He approached Naruto, his eyes scrutinizing. "The important thing is that you're well. But we need to talk about this chakra of yours and how it manifests. We don't want you to destroy all of Magnolia by accident." Naruto nodded, his face turning serious. He knew discretion was key. The incident in the forest had been a critical mistake, but this uncontrolled entrance was a public warning. "Yes, Master. I'm very sorry. It was a miscalculation. But I'm learning to control it." Makarov stared at him, with a wisdom that went beyond his appearance. "I hope so, boy. Because your power, it's something we haven't seen before. It's too vast for this world if not handled carefully." That night, back in his apartment, the guild incident and Makarov's warning resonated in Naruto's mind. The euphoria of his discoveries was tempered by the raw reality: his power was a double-edged sword. He was capable of incredible feats, of flying at speeds that defied comprehension, of generating mass clones, and of destructive power that could reshape landscapes. But he could also cause unintentional destruction and, worse, attract unwanted attention. He sat on his bed, closing his eyes. The tailed beast's mental space opened before him. "Gaki! I told you," Kurama's voice boomed, exasperated. "You almost exposed us. That entrance was ridiculous." Naruto sighed. "I know, Kurama. I'm sorry. I got carried away. The speed, it's incredible. And the punch's power. I didn't imagine it was that much. Your base power is now that of a tailed beast, and your sage mode amplifies it. You need to be more careful. The people of this world aren't ready for what you are." Kurama's voice, though scolding, had a hint of genuine concern. Naruto felt a mental nod. "You're right. I need more control. And I need a way to use my abilities without causing catastrophes." His mind, now functioning with a lucidity amplified by the integration of his chakra and Fiore's magic, began to weave ideas. The need for discretion, the lack of mages taking dangerous and distant missions, his own speed and stamina. The business plan he had outlined in the forest began to take a more concrete form. "Hey, tailed beasts," Naruto said, addressing all of them. "I've come up with an idea. I'm not just going to do fast deliveries. I'm going to set up a service shop." The tailed beasts looked at him with curiosity. "A shop? For what, ramen?" Shukaku asked disinterestedly. "No, a shop for everything other mages can't or won't do. Long-distance deliveries, of course, but also deciphering ancient documents or encrypted messages, or ground research for dangerous and remote places." "And how will you do that, Gaki?" Son Goku asked. "Shadow clones," Naruto exclaimed, with a new brilliance in his eyes. "I'll use the clones to train my flight control and my speed, yes, but also for deliveries and research. And for deciphering. I can have one clone study in the library while another trains, and another makes a delivery. And when the clone disappears, all the experience returns to me. It's like being several people at once." And the tailed beasts were surprised at the effectiveness. "Well, the Gaki is finally using his brain," Kurama muttered, surprised and grudgingly impressed. "We never saw him use the clones like that in our world," Isabu added. "With that new clone stamina, you could cover the entire continent in days." Kome, the Seven Tails, exclaimed excitedly. Naruto nodded, his mind already designing the logistics. He wanted to focus his business on very distant regions and cities, those where the time and risk investment didn't outweigh the reward for most guild mages. It would be a service that filled a void, not one that would directly compete with the guild's daily missions near Magnolia. He also thought about his role beyond business. If there were entire towns or regions that needed help rebuilding, defending against monsters or bandits that were beyond the reach of local guilds, he would be there. His dream of being Hokage, of protecting people, was still alive, just in a new land. He wanted to help build homes, secure food sources, protect the innocent. "You're thinking like a leader, Gaki." Kurama's voice pulled him from his thoughts, with a barely disguised tone of pride. "But go slow. You can't do everything at once." Naruto knew Kurama was right. He needed to understand the power structures of this continent and others. The laws, the systems of government, the geography. He would have to talk to Master Makarov. "Yes, Kurama. First, I'll start with deliveries. And then, I'll research how this world works. I'm going to ask Master Makarov how everything is structured." The decision was made. Naruto would not only adapt, he would thrive. He would turn his power into a tool for good, for help, and to build a new future in Fiore, a future in which his abilities, and his indomitable spirit, would leave a profound mark. This chapter delves into Naruto's strategic thinking for his new life in Fiore. He's clearly thinking big and showing his leadership potential. Chapter 17, A Business, a Continent, and a Silent Confession. The next morning, Naruto Uzumaki found himself in Master Makarov's office, a small room on the guild's second floor, cluttered with scrolls, books, and the familiar scent of pipe tobacco. The master, seated in his enormous chair behind an equally large desk, observed him with his usual blend of wisdom and mischief. Their conversation about the broken tables incident had ended with a sympathetic laugh and a welcome to the Destructors Club from Makarov, but Naruto knew the main topic hadn't been addressed yet. "Master Makarov," Naruto began, his tone more formal than usual. "I've been thinking about my power and how it can be useful here at Fairy Tail." Makarov nodded, his gaze attentive. "I'm listening, boy." Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, my power is different. And it's very fast. And I can make clones. I came up with a business idea." Naruto then laid out his plan, the Whirlwind Long-Distance Delivery and Services Company, as he had named it in his mind. He detailed how he would use his shadow clones to make multiple simultaneous deliveries to distant regions that few mages dared to go to due to danger or low reward. He spoke of offering terrain research services, deciphering ancient documents, using clones to study languages and calligraphy, and even helping remote villages with bandit problems, construction, or food supply. All of this, he emphasized, would be to fill gaps in existing services, not to take work from local mages. Makarov listened in silence, his eyes observing every detail, every one of Naruto's gestures. At first, one eyebrow rose in astonishment at the scale of the ambition. The idea of using shadow clones to operate an intercontinental logistics company was revolutionary. And the magnitude of Naruto's speed, demonstrated in his chaotic entrance, made it entirely plausible. A smile slowly spread across Makarov's face. It wasn't a smile of disbelief, but of deep admiration and growing fondness. This boy, despite coming from another world and possessing terrifying power, had his heart in the right place. He wanted to help, not just benefit himself. "Naruto," Makarov said, his voice hoarse but full of warmth. "Your idea is fascinating. It's something that has never been attempted in Fiore. It's incredible." Then, Makarov became serious. "But it also involves risk. Not just for you, because of the dangers in distant areas, but also because of the kind of attention you might attract. Your power is unique. Some will see it as a threat, others as an opportunity for their own ends. The Magic Council, Dark Guilds. There are many factions on this continent." Naruto nodded. He had thought about that. "That's why I need to understand how this world works. How is this continent structured, and the others? Who are the main authorities? The Dark Guilds? I need to know what I'm up against if I want to protect what I find here." Makarov smiled. "A smart question. I see you have a good head on your shoulders. This continent is called Ishgar. It's the largest and most powerful, with many magic guilds, the Magic Council that governs the laws, and the 10 Wizard Saints as its elite protectors. East of Ishgar, across the Great Sea, is the continent of Alakatasia, which is the western part of Earthland, also known as the Western Continent, a land of military empires and war mages. The only known territory of this continent so far is the Alvarez Empire. And beyond, the mysterious continent of Giltana, little explored and full of dangers." The master gave him a brief but detailed explanation of the politics, geography, and main magical powers of Ishgar and its neighbors. He spoke of dark guilds like Grimoire Heart and Tardaros, the constant threat of the dark wizard Zeref, and the military empires that sought to expand their influence. Naruto listened eagerly. His mind processed the information, classifying it, creating a mental map of this new chessboard. His goal of protecting and helping could extend far beyond Magnolia. "I understand, Master," Naruto said at the end of the explanation. "Then, I'll start with long-distance missions, little by little. And I'll use my clones to investigate the continents and the power structures." Makarov rose from his chair and clapped Naruto on the shoulder, a hand that, despite its size, conveyed immense strength. "You have my blessing, boy. And my support. I know you'll do great things. But remember, Fairy Tail is your home. And family comes first. If you ever get into trouble, we're here." "Thank you, Master," Naruto said, feeling a warmth in his chest. Makarov's approval was like a father's. With the master's backing, Naruto selected his first long-distance delivery mission. It was an urgent package for a coastal town several hundred kilometers away, a journey that, even for the fastest transport mages, would take days. For Naruto, it was a perfect test of his new service. He sent one clone to study in the guild's library, another to investigate the continent's most detailed maps, and he himself handled the delivery, flying at full speed, calculating and adjusting his technique with every kilometer. The efficiency was astounding. The package arrived in record time, the people of the coastal town astonished by the speed of the blonde messenger. Meanwhile, back at the guild, his silent presence remained a point of interest. The members had already grown accustomed to the idea of his chakra and his speed, but curiosity about his past still lingered. One afternoon, as Naruto sat at the bar, eating a plate of meat served by Myra Jane, Erza Scarlet sat beside him, with her usual strawberry tea. The guild, for once, was in a rare state of calm. "Naruto," Erza said, her voice quiet. "Yes, Erza-san?" Naruto replied. Erza took a sip of tea. "You've been very busy with your deliveries, and the master has told me about your company. It's an ambitious idea." Naruto smiled, a little embarrassed. "I'm just trying to be useful, and pay for my apartment." Erza looked at him, her scarlet eyes softer than usual. "About that, the apartment. You don't have to pay it back right away. You know I offered it as help." Naruto looked down at his plate. "I know, and I truly appreciate it. But, I want to earn my own place here. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to depend on anyone." Naruto's voice had become a whisper, revealing the deep wound of his past, the loneliness he had felt growing up, the struggle for acceptance. Erza felt it. That pang of pain and pride she had sensed in her dreams now manifested clearly before her. It was a silent confession of his vulnerability, something few, if any, had witnessed in the unbreakable Titania. Naruto, Erza extended a hand, and with a gesture unusual for her, gently placed it on his shoulder. I understand. I understand you want to be independent. That you want to earn your own way. But in fairy tale, there are no burdens. Only family. What you did for your world was a burden no one should carry alone. Here, you can share it. You are not alone. Erza's words, filled with an empathy forged by shared visions, struck Naruto harder than any attack. They were the words he had always yearned to hear. He looked into her eyes, and for a moment, the glow of gratitude silenced all his defenses. It was a promise. An anchor in this new world. The loneliness, at last, felt a little less heavy. Naruto nodded, unable to articulate a response, but the slight moisture in his eyes and the sincerity in his expression were more eloquent than any words. In that instant, amidst the distant guild bustle, a deeper bond was forged between the uprooted hero and the steel Titania. Chapter 18: Rhythms of Adaptation and Unexpected Hobbies. Days at Fairy Tale for Naruto Uzumaki began to acquire a peculiar rhythm, a lively contrast to the constant tension of his previous life. His Whirlwind long-distance delivery and services company was taking off. Shadow clones, each with a fraction of his chakra but all his determination, became unstoppable messengers, carrying urgent packages to remote villages and returning with valuable information about routes, distant cities, and the customs of their inhabitants. Another clone spent hours in the guild library, immersed in tomes on Ishgar's history, noble families, magic council policies, and local dialects, an absorption of knowledge Naruto never imagined possible for himself. The efficiency was astonishing, and the guild's coffers, and Naruto's own pocket, began to swell considerably. But it wasn't all work and strategy. Makarov, in his wisdom, had insisted that Naruto relax and participate in guild life beyond missions. And to Naruto's surprise, and many others, he discovered new hobbies. One afternoon, while watching the mages play a noisy card game that seemed more like hand-to-hand combat, Myra Jane Strauss's cheerful voice interrupted him. Naruto, would you like to try cooking? We have a new dessert today. Naruto, despite his inclination for ramen, looked at Miragina's enthusiasm, always a food enthusiast. He accepted immediately. What followed was an impromptu lesson in the guild kitchen. Myra Jane, with infinite patience, taught him how to prepare a simple strawberry cake. Naruto, with the delicacy of a bear in a china shop, initially stumbled, slightly burned the batter, and spilled sugar everywhere. But his perseverance, the same that had led him to master the raisin, now applied to baking. Myra Jane laughed softly, her sweetness filling the air. For the first time in a long time, Naruto felt light, carefree, the weight of the world and his secrets easing a bit with the scent of vanilla and strawberries. It needs more love, Myra Jane exclaimed, guiding his hand to mix the cream. Her laugh was like a soft melody. When the cake finally came out of the oven, imperfect but deliciously sweet, Naruto felt a satisfaction that rivaled completing a complex jutsu. It was a different sense of creation, one that fed the soul. Myra Jane applauded, genuinely impressed by his persistence. Cooking, the aroma of freshly made food, the camaraderie, it was a facet of normal life he had never truly experienced. This is delicious, Natsu exclaimed, appearing out of nowhere, taking a bite of the cake without permission. Natsu, mind your manners, Erza reprimanded, who had also approached, her eyebrow raised at the unusual scene of Naruto in the kitchen. She herself tried a piece, and a small, rare, and precious smile appeared on her lips. It's acceptable, Naruto. For your first time. Erza's compliment, as understated as it was, meant a lot to Naruto. Discovering cooking became a relaxing hobby, a way to channel his creative energy peacefully. His days also included visits to the guild library. Under the attentive and sometimes overwhelming guidance of Levi McGarden, Naruto's clone, and by extension, himself, plunged into Fiore's vast knowledge. Levi, initially curious about Naruto's strange ability to learn without being present, a vague explanation he had given about how his clone's knowledge transferred, soon found herself astonished by the speed with which he absorbed information. Naruto, it's incredible! Levi exclaimed one day, her eyes shining behind her glasses. You've read more books on the history of magic in a week than many mages in a year. Your understanding of political structures and guilds is astonishing. Naruto smiled, rubbing the back of his neck. His clone's processing capacity, combined with his own new intelligence, made him a prodigious student. He not only read but analyzed, connected dots, deduced patterns. The tailed beasts in his mental space sometimes teased him about his new obsession with knowledge, but they were also proud. While Naruto explored these new interests, Erza Scarlet continued to observe closely. The dreams hadn't ceased. Now they weren't visions of war, but fragments of Naruto's life in his own world, the loneliness of his childhood, his tireless pursuit of recognition, the camaraderie of Team 7, the determination in his eyes when facing hatred. It was as if she were reliving his life, his deepest emotions. This empathetic connection made her feel a mix of protection, fascination, and a silent anxiety. She saw him during his missions, that explosive contained force, that incomprehensible speed. She saw him in the guild, his genuine laughter while playing cards with Natsu and Gray, his seriousness when talking to Makarov, his adorable clumsiness in the kitchen. The contrast between that uprooted hero of her dreams and the fairy tale Naruto was disconcerting. One afternoon, Erza found Naruto sitting in a quiet corner of the guild, consulting an ancient map of Ishgar. His face was concentrated, his eyes scanning the lines of kingdoms and trade routes. "You're planning something big, aren't you?" Erza asked, her voice quiet. Naruto looked up, with a small smile. "Just trying to be useful. This world is huge, and there are many people who need help in distant places, and much to learn." Erza sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the map. "I understand. But be careful. Knowledge is power, and power always attracts attention." "I know," Naruto said, his voice more serious. "Kurama has already told me. And the master. I'm learning to be more discreet." Erza nodded. The mention of Kurama was intriguing, but she decided not to pry. There was something about Naruto that compelled her to trust him, despite the mysteries. She had felt the change in him, the calm that had followed his incident in the training ground. It was as if a part of him had settled, matured even further. "Just be careful, Naruto," Erza said, her voice almost a whisper. In her dreams, she had seen him alone, against the world. Here, at Fairy Tail, she didn't want him to feel that way. She wanted him to know he had allies, a family. Naruto looked at her, his blue eyes fixed on hers. He felt the depth of her concern, the warmth of their forging friendship. It was a silent connection, a mutual understanding that transcended words. It was Erza Titania, the woman who had been the first to see him not as a stranger, but as someone who needed help, someone who had earned his place. And by her side, in the noisy heart of Fairy Tail, Naruto felt that, perhaps, he had found a new home where he could truly thrive. Chapter 19, The Whirlwind Company and the Rise of a Rumor. Months passed in a whirlwind of activity for Naruto Uzumaki. His Whirlwind long-distance delivery and services company was no longer just a simple plan, but a functional entity beginning to weave its own legend in the remotest corners of Fiore. His shadow clones, tireless and efficient, spread across the most dangerous paths, delivering goods, gathering valuable information about ancient ruins or dark guild activities, and even helping needy villages. The knowledge he absorbed from the guild library, channeled through clones dedicated to research, gave him an unprecedented understanding of the continent's geography, politics, and vast magical network. His goal was to operate in silence, without drawing attention from major factions, but the speed and efficiency of his services were simply too extraordinary to go unnoticed. The people of Fiore, accustomed to the slow and dangerous journeys of old, were astonished to see a package sent from Harjan arrive in a coastal town in northern Ishgar in a matter of hours, not weeks. Rumors began to circulate like wildfire: the wind messenger, the golden flash, the swift shadow. They spoke of a young man in a white cloak who appeared from nowhere and vanished as quickly as he arrived, always with a smile. The rewards for his services were generous, as he took risks others wouldn't. And true to his promise, Naruto ensured that these profits largely flowed into the guild's coffers, paying for his apartment and contributing significantly to Fairy Tail's prosperity. Despite his growing responsibilities and the complexity of his new venture, Naruto never lost his love for the simple things. And in Fiore, he rediscovered a new passion: local ramen. One midday, while everyone in the guild devoured their lunch, Naruto found himself at the bar once again. "Myra-san, another bowl of miso ramen, please," Naruto exclaimed, his eyes shining as he finished the last slurp from his bowl. Myra-Jane, with her eternal smile, nodded. "Coming right up, Naruto. You really love our ramen, don't you? It's the best," Naruto asserted, his mouth full. "Though, Ichiraku ramen from my village was unbeatable. But this comes pretty close. It has an incredible broth and the shashu is perfect." Myra-Jane chuckled, happy to see the young man so at ease. Ramen, a simple dish, had become one of Naruto's small anchors to this new life. It was a familiar comfort in an unfamiliar world, an echo of his roots that made him feel a little less alone. His discipline in cooking for himself at home was admirable, but the guild's ramen, with its warmth and comforting taste, was his weakness. Erza, sitting at a nearby table, enjoying her strawberry cake, a pastime Naruto had come to respect with a mix of admiration and a touch of dread, overheard the conversation. A small smile curled on her lips. She liked seeing Naruto enjoy himself. The visions of his past had ceased in their intensity, replaced by a constant empathy, a connection that had become a silent part of her existence. Now, more than visions of his war, she received waves of his joy, his frustration, his determination, and a slight stomach ache whenever Naruto gorged himself on 10 bowls of ramen. The successes of the Whirlwind Company did not go unnoticed. Requests for Naruto's services began to come not only from merchants but also from minor nobles and small guilds operating far from the main cities. The constant flow of jewels and the growing reputation of the Wind Messenger in the outskirts of Ishgar began to generate a buzz among other factions. In the capital, in the high halls of the Magic Council, reports of a mysterious mage with unprecedented speed abilities and a network of clones became more frequent. At first, they were dismissed as exaggerations. But the consistency of the reports, and the messenger's apparent affiliation with Fairy Tail, raised some eyebrows. It wasn't a direct threat, but it was an anomaly, a power difficult to classify and, therefore, difficult to control. Master Makarov was well aware of this. Sitting in his office, reviewing Naruto's reports and the growing rumors, he couldn't help but feel a cold bead of sweat run down his temple. This boy, Makarov murmured, with a mix of pride and growing concern. His energy is pure, his intentions are noble, but his power, it's a beacon in the dark. It attracts the biggest mods. He knew that Naruto's presence, with his immense and unclassified power, would inevitably attract the attention of those who saw power as a tool for domination. Dark guilds, and even some factions within the council itself, with their political agendas, wouldn't hesitate to investigate, and even try to control, such a singular individual. Makarov's priority was to protect Naruto, and the guild, from the repercussions of his growing influence. For his part, Naruto remained oblivious to the growing web of intrigues his presence was weaving. He only saw missions as a way to help, to explore, to earn his place. His mind, increasingly sharp, was already beginning to notice subtle changes in the flow of information he received from his clones, small interferences, a higher frequency of watchers on his routes. They weren't hostile yet, but the surveillance was palpable. Life in Fairy Tail continued to be noisy, chaotic, and full of camaraderie, an invaluable refuge for the uprooted hero. But outside the guild walls, across the vast and complex continents of Fiore, the echo of the Whirlwind was beginning to resonate with an unstoppable force, attracting both admiration and curiosity from powers that still remained in the shadows. Chapter 20: Flames, Ice, and the Stealthy Shadow. The routine at Fairy Tail continued its chaotic and vibrant course, but for Naruto, the whispers of his Whirlwind Company were beginning to resonate beyond Magnolia's borders. However, before the intrigues of the Magic Council could fully manifest, a more familiar and predictable request reached his ears. One morning, as Naruto savored his 10th bowl of miso ramen at the bar, Natsu Dragneel approached him with his usual overflowing enthusiasm, dragging a reluctant gray fullbuster along. "Naruto, we need your help," Natsu exclaimed, his fist ablaze. "We're going on a mission, but Erza's busy with something for the master and can't come," Gray scoffed, crossing his arms. "And we can't just bring Happy and Elfman on a mission like this. It's to deal with an ice monster that's causing havoc near the forests of Sun Village. No one can get close." Naruto blinked. An ice monster. It sounded like an interesting challenge and a good opportunity to work more closely with the dynamic duo. Plus, it would give him an excuse to test some of his basic abilities without drawing the attention of spies. "An ice monster? Sounds fun," Naruto said, finishing his ramen with a final noisy slurp. Natsu grinned, his eyes gleaming. "All right, let's go beat it up." The journey on foot to Sun Village was a mix of Natsu's exuberant energy and Gray's cold sarcasm. Naruto, accustomed to team walks, found himself enjoying the camaraderie. Natsu wouldn't stop talking about fights, while Gray complained about his habit of unconsciously stripping. It was noisy, inefficient in shinobi terms, but undeniably human and warm. Upon reaching the vicinity of Sun Village, the air turned freezing. The trees were covered in an unusual frost, and the ground, once green, now shimmered with a layer of perpetual ice. The terrified villagers explained that the monster was a colossal ice creature that absorbed heat and life, freezing everything in its path. "What the hell? It's freezing!" Natsu exclaimed, wrapping his arms around himself, his fire magic reacting to the extreme cold. "Obviously, idiot. It's an ice monster," Gray retorted, who seemed to feel more comfortable in the icy environment, his ice magic already palpable around him. Naruto, with his sharpened senses, felt the monster's presence. It was an immense mass of cold energy. He remembered Kurama's warnings about containment. This was a mission for his comrades. He would be the support, the wild card. "Alright, I'll handle the speed and support," Naruto said. "Natsu, your fire will be effective. Gray, your ice can contain it." The battle quickly began. The ice monster was a colossal creature, made of pure ice, with sharp spikes and formidable brute strength. Its attacks consisted of sharp ice blasts and a freezing aura that tried to paralyze its opponents. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. Natsu charged head-on, his fists engulfed in flames, landing direct blows against the creature. The ice crackled and melted with each impact, but the monster quickly regenerated. Ice Make, Lance. Gray conjured ice spears that shot towards the monster, momentarily immobilizing or breaking its appendages. Naruto moved like a shadow, using his chakra-enhanced speed to flank the monster. He didn't use flashy jutsus. His strategy was pure agility and precise chakra-infused strikes. He dodged ice blasts with astonishing ease, moving around the creature, looking for weak points that Natsu and Gray could exploit. He landed concentrated chakra punches on the monster's joints, creating fissures that Natsu's fire could exploit. "Here, Natsu, take advantage," Naruto yelled, pointing to a crack in the creature's arm he had created with an impact. Natsu, with his combat instinct, didn't hesitate. "Got it." Fire Dragon's Roar. A massive explosion of fire erupted from his mouth, hitting the monster's arm and disintegrating it. The creature roared, attempting to counterattack with a sweep of its remaining arm. Naruto, in an instant, created a single shadow clone that intercepted the blow. The clone burst into smoke upon impact, but it gave Naruto the fraction of a second needed to appear behind the monster. With a punch charged with 10% of his base power, remembering Kurama's warning, Naruto impacted the base of the monster's spine. The blow didn't pulverize it, but it made it stagger, severely cracking. "Now, Gray, freeze it!" Naruto shouted. "Ice Make, Geyser." Gray responded, creating a massive pillar of ice that rose from the ground, trapping and freezing the monster in place. Natsu, with a final roar, unleashed a fire dragon's impact, imbuing his fist with explosive power. The blow struck the frozen monster, causing it to explode into thousands of ice fragments, which quickly dissipated. The mission was complete. Natsu and Gray stood, breathing heavily. Natsu, with a wild grin, fist bumped Naruto. "You're awesome, Naruto. Your speed and those surprise punches are incredible. We make a great team." Gray, though more reserved, nodded. "You didn't do bad, Naruto. Your way of moving is weird, but effective, and you're not even tired." Naruto smiled. The mission had been a success, and he had managed to test his abilities in real combat without revealing too much. The chemistry with Natsu and Gray was palpable. They were noisy, yes, but loyal and powerful. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The Whirlwind Company flourished, its services increasingly in demand. Naruto moved through Ishgar, sometimes alone, sometimes with one or two clones, delivering, researching, always with an attentive ear to the needs of the towns he visited. His reputation grew silently, the legend of the Wind Messenger spreading. However, Naruto was not naive. His shinobi training, his war experience, and his now sharpened sense of perception, Six Paths Sage Sense, warned him that he wasn't alone. For some time now, he had noticed patterns. A subtle but constant presence at the edges of his vision, a magic signature that repeated itself in different places, kilometers away. They were followers, not hostile, yet, but undeniably present. One day, after a delivery to a small mining town in the mountains, Naruto felt the familiar magic signature following him. It wasn't an immediate threat, but the persistence was annoying. Instead of returning directly to Magnolia, Naruto changed his course, heading into a dense forest. He stopped in a clearing, thick vegetation hiding him. He hid behind a massive oak, closing his eyes to concentrate on his perception. The magic signature approached, cautious but determined. It was that of a skilled mage, no doubt, with good stealth control. But it wasn't enough for Naruto's senses. The signature wasn't malevolent, but neither was it friendly. It was observant. When the figure finally appeared in the clearing, Naruto recognized him from his clone's reports and the descriptions he had read in the library. It was a tall, slender man, dressed in a discreet robe, with a serious demeanor and a piercing gaze that seemed to see through things. It was Laharl, an elite agent of the Magic Council, known for his skill in investigation and espionage. Naruto emerged from his hiding place, suddenly appearing in front of Laharl. The council mage visibly startled, his eyes widening in shock. He hadn't detected Naruto at all. "Were you looking for me?" Naruto asked, his voice calm, but with a hint of firmness. His posture was relaxed, but ready for action. Laharl quickly composed himself, his face turning stony. His hand slowly went to his wand, but Naruto's immense, barely contained aura made him hesitate. "Who are you?" Laharl demanded, his voice tense. "You've been seen in many regions, carrying out inexplicable activities. The Magic Council wants answers." Naruto smiled, a smile without malice, but with a touch of warning. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And yes, I've been making deliveries and helping people. I work for Fairy Tail. My activities are legitimate." Laharl narrowed his eyes. "Your speed, your chakra, as you call it. It's not registered magic. It's an immense and unknown power. The council wants to know its origin. They want to know who you really are." Naruto stood firm, his expression hardening. "My origin is my business. My intentions are clear: to help. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just to live my life and, if I can, make things better. But I don't like being followed." The tension in the clearing was palpable. Laharl, though intimidated by Naruto's raw power, did not back down. He was a council agent, and his duty was to get answers. "We understand you don't want to reveal your secrets," Laharl said, his voice lower now, but without yielding. "But your existence is an anomaly. A dangerous anomaly. The council will not stop investigating until it has a complete understanding of your capabilities and your loyalty." Naruto sighed. He knew this would come. He couldn't just disappear. And he didn't want to run. He had found a home. "Look," Naruto said, stepping forward, his chakra aura subtly pulsing, not to intimidate, but to make clear its magnitude. "I'm not a threat. I saved the world from a war. I'm not looking for trouble. But if you try to force me to do something I don't want to do, or if you endanger Fairy Tail, then yes, I'll have to show you what I'm capable of." The warning was not an empty threat. Laharl, a professional, felt the immensity of the power. It was a power that could easily destroy entire cities. He understood the message. "The council only seeks the safety of the continent," Laharl said, not taking his eyes off him. "We need to understand your power to ensure that safety." "My actions will speak for me," Naruto retorted. "As long as you don't interfere with Fairy Tail or my goals of helping people, there will be no problems. But if council mages continue to follow me, I won't greet them with the same patience." Laharl remained silent, weighing the words. The confrontation had been direct, and Naruto's power evident. He gave a small nod. "Understood, Naruto Uzumaki. I will transmit your message to the council. We hope your actions, as you say, confirm your intentions." With that, Laharl turned and vanished among the trees, his magic signature quickly fading away. Naruto stood in the clearing, the silence of the night returning to settle over him. The first direct confrontation had ended. He had made his position clear. But he knew this was only the beginning. The echo of the whirlwind had resonated too strongly, and now, the eyes of the authorities and other factions in the shadows were fixed on him. Chapter 21: The Magic Council and the Growing Shadow. Laharl's report, concise and direct, resonated in the large, vaulted hall of the Magic Council. The round table, carved from pale stone and surrounded by imposing chairs, hosted Ishgar's 9 most influential members. The crystal lamps hanging from the ceiling barely managed to dispel the shadow that Laharl's revelation had cast over them. "And so, counselors," Laharl concluded, his voice grave but inflectionless, "the subject, Naruto Uzumaki, is, as I said, an anomaly. His power of chakra, as he calls it, is immeasurable. His speed defies our classifications. And not only does he possess the ability to generate multiple copies of himself, but, in a demonstration I was able to verify from a distance, a single strike of his hand has the potential to wipe out an entire forest." A murmur of disbelief and alarm rippled through the table. The counselors' expressions ranged from icy skepticism to barely disguised fear. It was rare for an agent of Laharl's reputation to submit such a fantastic report. Immeasurable, you say, Laharl asked Ord, one of the younger and more ambitious counselors, with a tone of skepticism tinged with interest. A power comparable to a wizard saint? Or superior? Laharl, his face impassive, replied, Counselor Ord, I can state, without exaggeration, that the aura of his base power rivals that of the most powerful wizard saints, and may even surpass them in magnitude. And he hints at having more in reserve. The bomb dropped with a silent impact. If Laharl's words were true, Fairy Tale harbored a force of nature. An unclassified, unregistered, and seemingly limitless force. This is unacceptable, declared Crawford Seam, the elderly and paranoid chairman of the council, striking the table with a trembling fist. Such power cannot roam unsupervised. And what does it mean that he comes from another world? Is it dark magic in disguise? An ancient relic. He claims to be a hero from a war in his world, Laharl explained. His intentions, according to him, are benevolent, to help. And he is using his abilities for a kind of long-distance delivery company under Fairy Tale's banner. The mention of Fairy Tale further ignited the room. The guild was already known for its unconventional methods and eccentric mages. Makarov, though a wizard saint, was often a thorn in the council's side. Fairy Tale, of course, growled Grandoma, a stern-faced counselor, always attracting trouble. This is a potential threat to Ishgar's stability. Such power, if it falls into the wrong hands. And what if it's already in the wrong hands, countered Hyborion, the most perceptive of the counselors, one of the 10 wizard saints who also sat on the council. His voice was deep and measured, his eyes closed in deep meditation. A hero capable of cataclysmic destruction with a single punch. There is a fine line between protection and tyranny. Factions within the council began to emerge. Some, like Crawford and Grandoma, saw Naruto as a latent threat that needed to be classified, controlled, or, if necessary, neutralized. Others, like Ord, saw an opportunity, immense power that, if it could be recruited or manipulated, could be an invaluable asset to the council or to their own political agendas. Hyborion, more pragmatic, advocated for a thorough and cautious investigation, without provoking such a formidable force. What do you propose, Laharl? Crawford asked. Laharl remained calm. I informed the subject of the council's concern. He stated that his actions will speak for him and that he does not wish to be followed. But he also warned that if we interfere with Fairy Tale, or force him, he will respond. I propose more discreet surveillance, using our best sensory agents, and a formal summons to Master Makarov for a full explanation. We must not provoke a confrontation until we fully understand the extent of his power and his true intentions. Laharl's proposal was hotly debated. Finally, the majority leaned towards caution. Naruto's implicit threat, backed by Laharl's experience, was too great to ignore. It was decided that surveillance would be intensified, and an official summons, drafted with the utmost care and formality, would be sent to Makarov. The era of ignorance about the Wind Messenger had ended. Days later, Master Makarov received the sealed parchment with the Magic Council seal. His face grew grim as he read it. It was no surprise. He had sensed this coming. Naruto's chaotic entrance, coupled with the growing rumors of his Whirlwind company and the chakra trail he had left in the forest, would inevitably draw attention. So the time has come, Makarov murmured to himself, a knot of worry tightening in his small chest. I didn't want this so soon. The summons was clear. Makarov was to appear before the council in 1 week to explain Naruto Uzumaki's presence in Fairy Tale, the nature of his power, and the origin of his business. The wording was courteous, but the subtext was a demand. This boy. Makarov sighed, his gaze drifting to the bustling guild hall. He saw Naruto, at that moment, laughing with Natsu and Gray, sharing a story about a particularly peculiar delivery. His spirit was as pure as any Fairy Tale member's, but his power was an unknown that the council wouldn't tolerate for long. Makarov decided he would speak with Naruto alone before the meeting. He needed the boy to understand the delicacy of the situation, the web of bureaucracy and politics that threatened to engulf him. Meanwhile, Erza Scarlet also sensed something looming in the air. She didn't have the council's information, but her empathetic connection with Naruto was stronger than ever. She felt the growing tension surrounding him, the subtle surveillance he was aware of. She also felt her own frustration at his lack of understanding of his situation. Naruto's visions had become more sporadic, but each time they appeared, they were more intense, more vivid, a constant reminder of his past and the burden he carried. One afternoon, Erza found Naruto on the training grounds, practicing his flight and the use of his clones with fierce concentration. He wasn't making destructive blows, but precision exercises, flying through smoke rings, moving small objects with controlled bursts of air. His mastery was growing exponentially. Erza approached, her armor clinking softly. Naruto sensed her but didn't interrupt his practice. "Naruto," Erza said, her voice softer than usual. Naruto landed gently in front of her, dispersing the clones surrounding him. "Yes, Erza-san, I've sensed a growing unease around you," Erza confessed, her scarlet eyes fixed on his. "It seems your Whirlwind company is attracting more than just clients." Naruto nodded, his expression turning serious. "I know. A council agent confronted me a few days ago. I made it clear to them that I'm not a threat, but also that I won't allow them to interfere with Fairy Tail." Erza frowned. "An agent? And you didn't tell me." "I didn't want to worry you," Naruto replied, honesty in his voice. "Besides, there was no fight. Just a conversation. But I know this is only the beginning." Erza sighed. She felt Naruto's tension, the burden of discretion he had imposed on himself. The worry in her heart grew. She had seen the horrors he had faced, the loneliness he had felt. She didn't want him to experience that again. "Naruto," Erza said, her tone now one of gentle firmness. "You don't have to carry this alone. You're part of Fairy Tail. We're family. The master will handle the council. But if you need help, or just to talk, don't hesitate." Naruto looked at her, gratitude shining in his eyes. He had built a wall of reserve to protect himself, to avoid being a burden. But Erza, with her unwavering sense of loyalty and unexpected empathy, always managed to see through him. "Thank you, Erza-san," Naruto said, with a small, sincere smile. "Really? It means a lot." As the sun set over Magnolia, painting the sky in shades of gold and scarlet, the bond between Naruto and Erza grew a little stronger. The threat of the council loomed over them, but in the heart of Fairy Tail, the promise of family held firm. Chapter 22, The Value of Teamwork and Hidden Strength. The tension surrounding the imminent Magic Council summons loomed over Master Makarov, but Naruto, though aware of the threat, focused on what he could control, his missions and his growing integration into Fairy Tail. After several weeks of solo deliveries, his reputation as the Wind Messenger had grown, but so had the need to participate in the kind of missions that forged guild bonds. One morning, the guild's request board displayed a particularly challenging request: elimination of the deep-sea beast, Tenro Island. Tenro Island, sacred to Fairy Tail and known for its abundant magic and powerful creatures, was a place where only the strongest mages ventured. The reward was considerable, but so was the risk. The creature had been attacking fishing and merchant ships, disrupting vital sea routes. "It's perfect," exclaimed Natsu Dragneel, a flame burning in his eyes. He and Grey Fullbuster were already examining the mission. "Yeah, but it's too dangerous to go alone, even for you, Flamebrain," Grey scoffed. Erza Scarlet approached, her expression serious. "It's an S-class mission. We'd need a strong team." Erza's gaze fell on Naruto. He understood. It was a test, an opportunity for the guild to see his true worth in a team combat situation beyond speed tricks, and for him to evaluate his limits without exposing his full power. "I'll go," Naruto said calmly. "I can be of help. My speed could be useful for flanking the beast." Natsu grinned enthusiastically. "Awesome! A team with Natsu, Grey, Erza, and Naruto. This is going to be epic." Grey nodded, albeit reluctantly. "As long as you don't cause any more craters, Naruto." Erza nodded, a glint of anticipation in her eyes. She didn't want him to hold back completely if the situation warranted it. She wanted to see what he was capable of when his friends' lives were on the line. The journey to Tenro Island was, as always, a noisy adventure. Natsu got seasick on the boat, to Grey's amusement and Erza's resignation. Naruto, strangely, didn't feel seasick. His chakra control allowed him to stabilize himself. Upon arriving at the island, the magical energy of the place was palpable, a torrent that resonated with Naruto's chakra, making him feel a deep connection to the land. The beast was a colossal sea monster, with scales hardened like rocks and tentacles that could crush ships. It had emerged from the depths to establish its dominance on Tenro's shores. The battle began. Natsu charged with his flames, Grey with his ice creations, trying to immobilize and burn the creature. Erza, with her equipped magic, changed armors with blinding speed, launching attacks with a variety of magical weapons. Naruto moved with his characteristic agility, the one he had shown against Guildarts, but now with even greater fluidity. He leaped onto the beast's tentacles, using his chakra propulsion to gain momentum, running on water for a brief instant. He landed chakra-infused punches that weren't visibly flashy, but impacted with astonishing force, opening fissures in the beast's toughest scales. "Here, Natsu, take advantage of the opening," Naruto shouted, pointing to a scale cracked by his punch. Natsu didn't hesitate. Fire Dragon's Roar. A massive roar of fire erupted from his mouth, hitting the scale and widening the crack. The beast counterattacked with a sweep of its tail, a mass of flesh and scales that could wipe out everything. Natsu and Gray, seeing the attack, braced for impact. "Behind you," Erza shouted, but Naruto was already moving. In an instant, Naruto created 3 shadow clones, each moving with the same speed and agility as him. One clone intercepted the tail's trajectory, blocking the blow with a defensive chakra barrier, which absorbed part of the impact before dissipating in a puff of smoke. The other 2 clones flanked the beast, distracting it while Naruto, the original, appeared on its head. "Here we go," Naruto exclaimed. He concentrated a portion of his base power, no more than the 30% Kurama had recommended, infusing it into his fist. It wasn't Sage Mode, nor a Rasengan. It was pure force, focused. The blow impacted the beast's skull with a dull, devastating sound. The beast roared in pain, its head shaking violently, and for a moment, it was stunned. The force had been such that the creature suffered a massive concussion, its vital functions interrupted by the impact. "Now," Erza shouted, her scarlet eyes gleaming with a wild light. She had seen the impact, felt the surge of power in that punch. It wasn't flashy magic, but Naruto's brute force and precision were unmatched. She changed into her Flame Empress armor. "Natsu. Final blow." Yeah, Natsu, with the Dragon Slayer's instinct, sensed the beast's weakness. He gathered all his fire, his fists burning with infernal intensity. Crimson Lotus, Exploding Flame Blade. Natsu launched a series of explosive blows, each impacting with the force of a bomb, pulverizing the beast's stunned head. The deep-sea beast collapsed with a crash that shook the island, its tentacles flailing one last time before becoming still. The mission was complete. Natsu was ecstatic, jumping for joy. "We did it! What a fight! Naruto, your punches and speed are key. You always know where to hit." Gray nodded. "Not bad support. But your clones, what was that? They don't feel like magic." Naruto smiled, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's my chakra. I can make copies of myself to help in the fight. They're like energy projections." Erza observed Naruto. She had felt the power in that last blow, the efficiency. She knew he had held back, but even that fraction of his base power had been devastating. It wasn't comparable to a high-level magic attack from Fairy Tail, but it was a different force, one that seemed to transcend the laws of known magic. Her visions had been correct. Naruto wasn't just strong, he was dangerously strong. A force that, if unleashed to its maximum, could rival all the wizard saints at once, and perhaps surpass them, just as Kurama had said in his meditations. The scale of his 100% base power was that of a tailed beast at its peak, a cataclysm in itself. His Sage Mode, the one he had used to create the crater in the forest, multiplied that by a factor of 15, perhaps 20. It was a scale of power that would make all of Ishgar tremble if revealed. The mission had been a resounding success. The team had shown unexpected synergy. Natsu and Gray were powerful and noisy, Erza was strategy and disciplined strength, and Naruto, the focal point of speed, infiltration, and precise impact, a wild card that elevated the level of any team. They had complemented each other perfectly. "Well done, Team Erza," said, a small smile of satisfaction. Her gaze lingered on Naruto, a mix of admiration and the persistent concern that only she seemed to feel. His power was his greatest asset, but also his greatest secret. And she, Erza, was increasingly convinced that her role would be to help him manage it. Chapter 23, The Golden Flash in Fiore's Chessboard. The victory over the Tenro beast solidified Naruto Uzumaki's position in Fairy Tail. Not only had he proven to be a formidable mage, but his ability to complement Natsu and Gray's fighting styles, and his obvious skill at following Erza's directions, made him an invaluable asset for the guild's most challenging missions. His reputation as the Wind Messenger, the Golden Flash of the Whirlwind Company, grew exponentially. He was no longer just a rumor, he was a service in demand, his name whispered with awe in markets and halls across Ishgar. Merchants sought him for urgent deliveries, nobles for confidential messages, and small towns for quick help against bandits or minor monsters that local guilds couldn't handle efficiently. The constant flow of jewels his company brought to Fairy Tail did not go unnoticed, further solidifying his position. Naruto, true to his promise, allocated a significant portion of his earnings to the guild's coffers, in addition to covering his own expenses and Erza's loan. As Naruto's fame grew among common folk and mid-ranking mages, the high echelons of power in Ishgard quickly took notice of the new player. The Magic Council, already alerted by Laharl's report, intensified its surveillance. Their agents, though unable to keep up with Naruto's speed, collected fragments of information: the unexplained crater in Oak Forest, the almost absurd speed of his travels, the apparent ability of multiplication, and the aura of power that, even from a distance, was undeniable. In the royal capital of Crocus, the king of Fiore, Tomo-kun, also received reports about the enigmatic Wind Messenger. Accustomed to his kingdom's magic, the king felt a mix of fascination and caution. Such singular power, if loyal, could be a great asset to the kingdom. If not, a threat. He ordered his own intelligence forces to investigate further, but with utmost discretion so as not to alarm Fairy Tail or its mysterious member. But it wasn't just Ishgar's established powers that set their eyes on Naruto. In the depths of the magical underground, dark guilds also began to whisper his name. Groups like Eisenwald, known for their destructive power hunger, or even the shadows of Phantom Lord, though weakened, heard the echoes of Naruto's power. For them, a mage with such immense strength and no clear affiliation with known magic systems was an immense temptation. He could be a weapon to recruit, to manipulate, or failing that, to eliminate before he became an obstacle. Naruto's first few missions began to feel different. His clones reported more frequent encounters with shadowy mages on distant routes, unusual questions from travelers, and the unmistakable feeling of being observed by eyes that sought not security, but opportunity. Naruto, with his perfected six-paths sage sense and his shinobi instinct always alert, was no stranger to the growing attention. Every time his clones returned with accumulated information, he felt the subtle vibrations of intrigue. More eyes were on him. Some neutral, some curious, and some, undeniably, with dark intentions. One afternoon, while Naruto was engrossed in planning a new delivery route, Erza Scarlet sat across from him at the guild table, her expression unusually tense. "Naruto," Erza said, her voice low, almost inaudible amidst the guild's bustle. "The rumors about the Wind Messenger are growing, and not all of them are of admiration." Naruto looked up from the map, his blue eyes fixed on hers. "I know, Erza-san. My clones have noticed some presences. Council agents, I suppose. And something darker." Erza nodded, her face grim. "Master Makarov is worried. The council's summons is imminent. And a power like yours, it's a weapon. And weapons always attract those who want to use them." The atmosphere became heavy. The warmth of the guild couldn't dispel the shadow of the threat. Naruto felt Erza's unease, her deep concern. She, more than anyone, understood the weight of loneliness and the burden of immense power. "Don't worry, Erza-san," Naruto said, trying to convey calm. But the determination in his eyes was unwavering. "I've faced worse. And I made a promise to the master. I won't cause unnecessary trouble. But I won't be intimidated either. Fairy Tail is my home now. And I won't let anything threaten it." Erza looked at him, and for a moment, the strength in Naruto's eyes eclipsed her own concern. He had changed. He had grown in this new world, not just in power, but in maturity. Titania knew that confrontation was inevitable. The question wasn't if it would come, but when, and how the echo of the whirlwind would react when pushed to its limits. Chapter 24, The Council's Summons and the Defense of a Son. The morning of the Magic Council summons dawned with an unusual tension over Magnolia. The sun shone, but an air of expectation and concern hovered over Fairy Tail. Master Makarov, adorned in his best robes, appeared more serious than usual, though his small stature did not diminish the immense authority he radiated. "Master, are you sure you don't want us to accompany you?" Erza asked, her voice filled with worry. She, Myra Jane, and Gildarts were waiting for Makarov at the guild entrance, their faces reflecting the gravity of the moment. Makarov shook his head, a small, sad smile gracing his lips. "No, my children. This is something I must handle alone. My presence is a courtesy, yours could be interpreted as a threat. And I don't want to give the council any more reason to worry." Makarov's gaze turned to Naruto, who stood a little apart, observing the scene with an expression of deep gratitude and a pang of guilt. The master looked at him with affection, a glint of pride in his eyes. "Naruto, trust me. And trust Fairy Tail. I will defend all my children, no matter where they come from." Naruto nodded, the master's promise resonating in his heart. He knew the risk Makarov was taking by defending him, an outsider with a power that the authorities didn't understand. With a final sigh, Makarov shrunk into his giant form and took flight, heading towards the capital, Crocus. The entire guild watched his departure, an unusual silence settling over the noisy hall. The Magic Council Hall in Crocus was imposing, its dark stone walls and tall stained glass windows creating a solemn and oppressive atmosphere. Makarov, having returned to his normal size, stood in the center of the room, before the circular table where the 9 counselors observed him with gazes ranging from skepticism to hostility. Crawford Seam, the council chairman, was the first to speak, his voice resonating with cold authority. Master Makarov, we have summoned you to address a matter of grave concern. The presence of an unclassified individual, Naruto Uzumaki, in your guild. Reports of his power are extraordinary and incomprehensible. Makarov maintained his impassive demeanor, his eyes, though small, gleaming with unbreakable determination. Naruto Uzumaki is a member of Fairy Tail. He has been accepted by his heart and spirit, not by the nature of his magic. And what about the nature of his power? Interjected Grandoma, her voice stern. We have received reports from your agent, Laharl, about his destructive capacity, and rumors of unprecedented speed and multiplication. His chakra is not known magic. It is a threat to Ishgar's stability. His chakra is his life energy, different from our magic, yes, but not inherently malicious, Makarov calmly replied. Naruto is a young man who has endured great tragedy. He has traveled from a distant world, a world devastated by war. He seeks no conflict. He only seeks a place to belong and a way to help. His Whirlwind company is a legitimate service that benefits remote towns and the guild. And the incident in Oak Forest. Ord pressed, his eyes fixed on Makarov. A 50-meter crater and 5 kilometers of devastation. Was that help? A cold bead of sweat ran down Makarov's temple. He knew that incident would be a key point. He had spoken with Naruto, who had explained that it was an accident, an underestimation of his power. It was an accident, Counselor Ord Makarov said, his voice firmer. A power test that went wrong. Naruto is still learning to control the magnitude of his strength in this world. It is immense power, yes, but it is not intended for destruction. His heart is in the right place. His record, if you had access to it, would show a life dedicated to protection. And what guarantees us that he won't become a threat? Demanded Crawford Seam, his paranoia evident. Such power cannot roam unsupervised. We propose that Naruto Uzumaki be placed under the direct observation of the Magic Council, with limitations on the use of his power, or that he be forbidden from using his chakra entirely. Makarov felt anger burn within him, but he contained it. The proposal was a direct attack on the freedom of a member of his guild. Naruto Uzumaki is not a weapon to be classified, nor a prisoner to be supervised, Makarov said, his voice rising, resonating through the hall. He is a human being with an immense gift. And he is learning. His power is a part of him. We cannot ask him to renounce his own essence. He is under Fairy Tail's guidance. And Fairy Tail is a guild loyal to Ishgar and to peace. His loyalty is to his guild, not the council, Grandoma retorted. At that moment, Hyborian, the wizard saint on the council, who had remained silent with his eyes closed, slowly opened them. His gaze, deep and wise, settled on Makarov. Master Makarov, are you willing to assume full responsibility for this young man's actions? To guarantee his behavior, Makarov did not hesitate. His eyes met Hyborian's. Yes, I take responsibility. Fairy Tail will defend peace, and Naruto Uzumaki will defend peace. He is a son of Fairy Tail, and family defends each other. The hall fell into a tense silence. Makarov's declaration was a display of unwavering loyalty, but also a challenge to the council's authority. They knew Makarov would not back down. Finally, Crawford Seam sighed, his face contorted. Very well, Master Makarov. For now, we will accept your word and your guarantee. But Naruto Uzumaki will remain under strict surveillance. Any future incidents, any uncontrolled display of his power, and the council will be forced to take more drastic measures. He is forbidden from using his Sage Mode or any technique that could cause mass destruction within populated areas. His delivery activities will be monitored. He is not an officially recognized member of Ishgar's guilds until he is classified. And if a wizard saint or a council agent summons him for an evaluation, he must present himself. Are we clear? Makarov nodded, though the taste of victory was bittersweet. He had defended Naruto, but in return, the young man would now be under constant scrutiny from the council. Crystal clear, Makarov said, his voice firm. With that, the meeting concluded. Makarov turned and left the hall, the weight of the situation pressing on his small shoulders. He had bought Naruto time, but the true battle for his acceptance was just beginning. The council's threat was a sword of Damocles hanging over the echo of the Whirlwind's head. Chapter 25, The Council's Shadow and Relentless Control. Master Makarov's return to the guild after his encounter with the Magic Council brought relief, but his demeanor, though relaxed to others, did not escape the keen eyes of Erza, Scarlet and Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto's freedom came with a price, constant surveillance and explicit restrictions on the use of his power. He could no longer afford accidents like the one in Oak Forest, nor displays of power that exceeded the limits set by Ishgar's authorities. Makarov had explained the new rules to Naruto privately, with a seriousness the young man understood perfectly. Naruto, the council is watching you. Every move, every use of your chakra. You cannot use your sage mode for destruction, or for anything that causes a commotion, and your company will be monitored. For now, we must be cautious. Naruto nodded, his face grim. The news hit him harder than he had admitted. He had found a home, a family, and now, that home was under scrutiny because of him. The weight of responsibility was immense. The past haunted him. Once again, his power was viewed with distrust. Once again, he was an anomaly to be controlled. The loneliness, which he had managed to mitigate, returned, cold and persistent. The following days were a test of his self-discipline. Naruto continued with his Whirlwind company, using his shadow clones for long-distance deliveries. His speed, though still astonishing, was more controlled, his landings, impeccable. There were no longer accidental explosions or unforeseen craters. The clones dedicated to research became even more crucial, gathering not only geographical information but also details about the movements of council agents and the magic signatures of dark guilds. Naruto became a master of containment and discretion, but the surveillance was palpable. He felt the gazes, the traces of sensory magic that followed him from a distance. They were subtle, but with his six-path sage sense, they were as obvious as the sun. They weren't aggressive, just observant. The constant feeling of being an experiment under a microscope frustrated him. He wanted to be free, he wanted to use his power to help on a large scale, but the council's invisible chains bound him. Despite the external pressure, guild life remained his anchor. Natsu and Gray continued to be a source of fun and chaos, their daily fights a noisy constant that distracted him from his own worries. He participated in their games, laughed at their foolishness, and continued to enjoy his ramen. Another miso ramen, Myra-san. Naruto requested one day, his smile tense. Myra Jane observed him with unusual warmth. You seem a little distracted, Naruto. Is everything alright? Naruto sighed. Just work. Lots of deliveries. Erza, who was passing by with a slice of strawberry cake, stopped. She had been watching Naruto closely. She felt the oppression in his spirit, the burden of surveillance. Her empathetic connection had become a bidirectional channel, allowing her to perceive not only Naruto's emotions but also the external tensions affecting him. She could feel the frustration he suppressed, the contained energy bubbling beneath his calm facade. Shared burdens are lighter, Naruto, Erza said, her voice firm but gentle. She sat beside him, offering him a piece of her cake. Naruto looked at her, surprised. He usually refused strawberry cake, but this time, he took a small bite. The sweetness was an unexpected bomb. It's complicated, Erza-san. I don't want to get the guild in trouble. Erza shook her head. You won't. Fairy tale sticks together. The master defends you because you're one of us. What the council does or thinks doesn't change that. Their conversations, discreet but deep, became a constant. She was the only one Naruto dared to confess his deepest frustrations to, the only one who seemed to understand the weight of being such a powerful, yet constantly monitored, being. He spoke to her of how he felt the council's magic on him, how he missed the freedom of his own world, the loneliness that sometimes overwhelmed him. Erza listened with unbreakable patience, offering practical advice and, more importantly, a constant presence. Sometimes, she invited him to train with her in a secluded corner of the grounds, where, away from prying eyes, Naruto could release a little more of his energy, though always under both their strict control. Erza, observing his movements, felt the immensity of his power, and marveled at the containment he exercised. Your control is exceptional, Naruto, Erza admitted one day, after Naruto performed a series of complex movements, dodging her attacks with incredible precision. without using more than 5% of his base chakra. It's admirable that you can contain so much strength, Naruto sighed. It's for the guild, Erza-san. I don't want to cause any more trouble. And for yourself, Erza added, her scarlet eyes fixed on him. You carry a burden, Naruto. But you're not alone. That simple affirmation was a comfort to Naruto. The loneliness, though still present, felt less overwhelming when Erza was near. In her company, amidst the noise and warmth of Fairy Tail, Naruto found the strength to keep going, to deal with the surveillance, and to forge a future in this new world, one step at a time. Chapter 26: Innocent Surveillance and the Dark Proposal. Naruto Uzumaki's life in Fairy Tail had settled into a kind of tense normalcy. The Magic Council's surveillance was a constant shadow, a reminder that his power, though contained, was an observed anomaly. However, within the bustling walls of the guild, Naruto found solace. His delivery and service missions prospered, becoming an indispensable part of Fairy Tail's economy, while his clones continued their meticulous research into Ishgar's geography and politics. Naruto's relationship with Erza Scarlet had deepened, anchored in a mutual understanding of the invisible burdens they both carried. She felt his loneliness and the pressure of surveillance, and he, the unwavering determination beneath her armor. With Natsu and Gray, camaraderie was noisy and direct, full of challenges and laughter. With Makarov, there was a relationship of paternal respect. Naruto was putting down roots, despite the shadows. One afternoon, the sun bathed the guild in a warm glow as Naruto enjoyed a bowl of miso ramen. Natsu and Gray were loudly arguing about who was stronger, while Happy flew nearby, offering sardines. Erza, in a corner, was reviewing a mission map. Everything was the usual Fairy Tail symphony. Suddenly, Naruto felt a change in the air, a subtle distortion that only his senses, amplified by sage chakra and magical integration, could perceive. It was an alien presence, a magic signature that didn't belong to the guild. It wasn't the cold, distant surveillance of the council. This was different, more cautious, almost stealthy, like a predator stalking. It moved discreetly through the outskirts of Magnolia, approaching the guild. Naruto maintained his calm expression, slurping his ramen, but his mind was on high alert. The tailed beasts, in his mental space, had also noticed the presence. Brat, you feel it, don't you? Kurama growled, his voice filled with distrust. It's not the council. It's different. Dark, but not entirely malicious. More like an opportunist. It's been lurking around town for a while, Jayaki added. It's coming straight for you, Jinchuriki. Naruto finished his ramen, his decision already made. He wasn't going to let anyone disturb the peace of his new home. He got up from the bar and headed towards the door, acting with a nonchalance that belied his internal alertness. I'm going to stretch a bit, he announced, waving to Myra Jane. Myra Jane smiled back. Of course, Naruto. Come back soon. Erza looked up from her map. Her scarlet eyes, though not perceiving the intrusion with the same clarity as Naruto, noticed his sudden departure. Something about the way he moved, too fluid, too intentional for a simple stretch, put her on guard. Naruto left the guild and headed to a quieter area on the outskirts, a small wooded clearing where he sometimes secretly practiced his flight. The presence followed him, keeping a safe distance. When Naruto reached the clearing, he stopped and turned, his posture relaxed. You can come out. I know you're there. A tall, thin man, dressed in dark clothes and with a cunning smile on his face, emerged from among the trees. His magic was discreet, but palpable. He wasn't a renowned mage, but his aura suggested experience in deception and subterfuge. So you're the famous wind messenger, the man said, his eyes scrutinizing Naruto with a mix of respect and calculation. My name is Valerius. I'm from a guild interested in your talents. Naruto observed him, expressionless. I don't work for just anyone. I'm in Fairy Tail. Valerius laughed, a hissing sound. Ah, yes, Fairy Tail. A nest of chaotic mages, aren't they? But your power, it's different. It's free, without the chains of old systems. And we, in our guild, value that freedom. The tailed beasts, in Naruto's mind, growled. This guy is slippery. His guild is dark. I feel a corrupt aura from him, Kurama warned. Naruto maintained his facade. I don't understand what you mean. Valerius took a step forward, his smile widening. Fairy Tail is a guild for children who play at being heroes. The Magic Council, 4 old men clinging to decaying power. We see true potential. The ability to transcend limits. We've heard of your speed, your clones, your chakra. Such immense power shouldn't be bound by rules. It should be used for true glory." The proposal became clear. It was an attempt at recruitment. Valerius wanted Naruto to join a dark guild, taking advantage of his power still unclassified by the authorities. "My guild would offer you a true place where you could use all your power, without restrictions. Where no one will judge you for being different. Where wealth and influence would be yours. We offer you the chance to be a king among mages, not a lapdog of the council." Naruto listened in silence, his mind processing the words. The offer was tempting, if not for the tinge of darkness and the obvious manipulation. It reminded him of Orochimaru, of the promise of limitless power he offered Sasuke. But Naruto had learned that lesson the hard way. True strength didn't come from darkness or control, but from connection and protection. "I'm not interested," Naruto said, his voice firm, cutting off Valerius's proposal. Valerius blinked, his smile faltered. "Not interested? Unlimited power? Freedom? Wealth? My freedom is in my guild. I use my power to protect, not for chaos. And I earn my wealth by working, not at the expense of others," Naruto retorted, his blue eyes fixed on Valerius, filled with unwavering determination. His chakra aura, though contained, emanated a firmness that surprised Valerius. "I'm not for sale. And Fairy Tail is my home." Naruto's answer was a direct blow. Valerius had underestimated the loyalty and character of the Wind Messenger. Valerius's cunning smile vanished, replaced by a sneer of contempt. "What a pity. Power without ambition is wasted power. But you'll regret it, kid. The council will trample you, and will have no mercy when the time comes. No one with your power can remain neutral." With those words, Valerius dissipated into a shadow, his magic signature quickly moving away, now with a clear hint of hostility. The recruitment attempt had failed, and in its place, a new seed of conflict had been planted. Naruto stood alone in the clearing, the afternoon sun already beginning to set. The offer had been repulsive, but the incident had left him with a clear understanding: dark guilds were not only watching him but would actively try to manipulate him. The innocence with which he had approached his life in Fiore, if he ever had any, was quickly fading. The council's shadow was one thing, the active threat of dark guilds was another. Naruto's true battle for his place in this world had only just begun. Chapter 29, Heading to Crocus and the Messenger's Impact. The week of preparation had culminated. The suit, a discreet piece of dark linen that perfectly fit his athletic build, was ready. Despite its simplicity, the elegant cut gave Naruto Uzumaki a mature and distinguished presence. The days had been filled with intensive training, not of brute force, but of exquisite control over his aura and speed, refining his ability to be an imperceptible ghost, or a blinding flash, at will. Kurama's warnings about the scale of his power and the need for discretion resonated in his mind, as did the promise not to cause any more accidents. Early in the morning, as the sun barely began to gild Magnolia's rooftops, Naruto bid farewell to Master Makarov and Erza Scarlet. "Good luck, Naruto," Makarov said, his voice unusually serious. "Remember what I told you. Discretion, courtesy, and be yourself." Erza gave him a slight nod. Her scarlet gaze, though contained, conveyed a mix of concern and deep trust. "King Tomo-kun is a shrewd man. Maintain your composure, and don't reveal more than necessary." Naruto nodded, his face serious. "I will, Master. Erza-san. Don't worry." With that, Naruto activated his propulsion ability. Not at the maximum speed he had used to return from Oak Forest, but at a controlled speed, one that would take him to Crocus in an impressive time by Fiore's standards, but without leaving a trace of destruction. His body became a golden blur as he moved away from Magnolia, leaving the familiar guild behind. The journey to Crocus, the royal capital, was a fascinating experience. Ishgar's landscapes unfolded before him, vast plains dotted with farms, green hills, and dense forests. Unlike his delivery mission routes, where he focused on speed, this time he allowed himself to observe more deeply. The diversity of the flora and fauna, the small villages that passed like miniatures beneath his feet, everything was part of this new world he was still discovering. Despite the seriousness of his destination, the sight and the feeling of flying freely brought him momentary peace. As he approached Crocus, the city's majesty began to reveal itself. The palace towers rose imposingly on the horizon, bathed in the morning sunlight. The streets became wider, the buildings more elaborate, reflecting the kingdom's wealth and power. The air was charged with the energy of urban life, a mix of food smells, crowds, and the subtle resonance of magic that permeated the capital. Naruto slowed his pace to a swift, fluid run as he entered through the city's outer gates. While still incredibly fast for a normal pedestrian, he blended better with the capital's morning hustle and bustle. The city was a hive of activity. Merchants, mages, guards, and common citizens moved through the cobblestone streets. It was a level of sophistication and order he hadn't seen since Konoha. His destination was the royal palace, a fortress of white stone and gold that dominated the city center. Naruto headed towards the grand main gates, flanked by imposing statues and guarded by soldiers in gleaming armor. Upon approaching the palace gates, Naruto felt a series of magic signatures activating around him. They were the royal guard's sensory mages, hidden but detectable to him. They knew he was coming. His arrival was not a surprise. The king had ordered his presence, and rumors of the wind messenger already preceded him. The armored guards, with spears at the ready, blocked his path when he was a few meters from the main entrance. Their faces were stony, but Naruto felt the tension in their muscles, a mix of discipline and a slight apprehension. His presence, even when contained, was imposing. "Halt," demanded the captain of the guard, a muscular man with a scar on his cheek. "Identify yourself. And your purpose at the royal palace?" Naruto stopped, his posture relaxed. "I am Naruto Uzumaki. I am here by invitation of His Majesty, King Tomokan." The captain and guard stared at him. Although the invitation was known, Naruto's presence was another matter. They felt the density of his energy, a power that escaped their comprehension, subtly different from any magic they had detected. A chill ran down the backs of some guards, a mix of intrigue and an instinctive reverence for an unknown force. His eyes, in particular, were remarkably intense. The captain, an experienced mage, felt a cold bead of sweat trickle down his temple. The legend of the Wind Messenger was just that, a legend. Seeing him in person, feeling that gravity in his aura, was different. He wasn't a manifest threat, but he was a power that commanded respect. "One moment," the captain said, regaining his composure. He turned to one of his subordinates. "Verify with Grand Counselor Danton. Say that the wind guest has arrived." While they waited, the guards kept their spears in position, a measure of caution rather than hostility. They observed Naruto with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. He, for his part, remained calm, observing the palace's imposing architecture. Soon after, the subordinate returned, his face a little pale. "Grand Counselor Danton has confirmed. Allow Mr. Uzumaki to pass. He will be escorted directly to the audience hall." The captain nodded, and the guards lowered their spears, opening the way. "Follow me, Mr. Uzumaki," the captain said, his voice now more respectful. His eyes, however, still denoted deep intrigue and subtle fear. He felt a vast energy within him, and wondered how a single man could possess such magnitude. Naruto followed the captain of the guard, his steps firm as he entered the sacred halls of the royal palace of Crocus. The audience with King Tomokan was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in the echo of the Whirlwind's complex life in Fiore. The power game was just beginning. Chapter 30, The King, the Whirlwind, and the Measure of Power. Naruto Uzumaki followed the captain of the guard through the opulent halls of the royal palace of Crocus. The air, unlike the guild's bustle or the dust of battlefields, was thick with the scent of incense, polished wax, and the faint aroma of antiquity. Tapestries hung from the walls, depicting scenes from Fiore's history and royal achievements. Every step took him deeper into a different world of power, one of protocol and politics, not of chakra and jutsus. Finally, the captain opened large, carved wooden doors, revealing the throne room. The hall was immense, bathed in light filtering through stained glass windows that told stories. In the center, on a raised platform, stood the royal throne. Seated upon it, an imposing figure despite his age, was King Tomokan. Beside him, Grand Counselor Danton, observed with his usual inscrutable face. Naruto advanced to the center of the hall, bowing his head slightly, a gesture Erza had advised him to do. King Tomokan's eyes observed him with a curious intensity, not of threat. "So you are Naruto Uzumaki, the Wind Messenger," the king said, his voice deep and resonant, filled with benevolent authority. There was no malice, only a genuine desire for understanding. "Your Majesty," Naruto replied, his voice firm and respectful. The king nodded. "I have heard much about you. Your abilities, your mysterious origin, and the impact of your services. The council is uneasy." "My intentions are noble, Majesty," Naruto affirmed, looking directly into the king's eyes. I only seek a place and a way to help. I am a member of Fairy Tale. King Tomo-kun smiled, a gesture that somewhat dispelled the hall's formality. I know. Makarov is an old friend, though exasperating at times. But his loyalty has never been in doubt. And if he has accepted you, that says a lot. The king rose from his throne, descending the steps slowly. He stopped a few feet from Naruto, Grand Counselor Danton maintaining a respectful but attentive distance. Naruto Uzumaki, the king said, his voice more intimate now. I will ask you a question few dare to ask a guest in my throne room. Is it true that you come from another world? Naruto looked at him. The question was direct, without preamble. He sensed the king's honesty. It was not a trap, but genuine curiosity. He remembered the conversation with Kurama about the need for discretion, but he also felt a connection with this monarch, a trust. There was something about Tomo-kun that reminded him of the righteous leaders he had known, like the third Hokage or Jiraiya himself. Yes, Majesty, Naruto replied, his voice lowering to an almost confidential tone. I come from a world very different from yours, where the energy we use is called chakra. My home is far away, beyond what your people know. King Tomo-kun and Danton exchanged glances, astonishment evident on their faces. The confirmation, though expected, was a revelation that challenged the very foundations of their understanding of the universe. Astonishing, the king murmured. A story heard only in legends. A being from another world. And with a power that the council cannot comprehend. My power is a part of me. I do not seek to dominate, Majesty, Naruto declared, his gaze serious. I have been a warrior in my world, yes. I was known as the one-man army in my last war. And I had the power to, if I had been a bad person, take over that world. But that was never my intention. My dream was always to be a Hokage, the leader of my people, someone who protects and serves his people. My ambition is to help others, to rise again, to build, to defend. In fact, I always dreamed of reviving and refounding my own clan, the Uzumaki, a clan of strong bonds and great energies. Never to rule by force. The sincerity and depth in Naruto's words were undeniable. King Tomo-kun felt a wave of relief. This young man, despite his immense power, was not a threat to his kingdom, but a noble spirit. I understand, the king said, a new light in his eyes. A leader who builds, not conquers. That is admirable, Naruto Uzumaki. King Tomo-kun turned to Danton. Prepare the sun orb, counselor. I want to classify this young man's power. Danton nodded, visibly impressed by Naruto's honesty and the king's decision. A guard brought a small velvet box. Inside, a shining crystal sphere rested, suspended on an intricately carved gold base. It was the Sun Orb, an ancient magical artifact designed to measure and classify the power of mages, used only for the most promising or most dangerous. It was the crown jewel of the kingdom's magical technology. To activate the orb, we need a small sample of your magical essence, Mr. Uzumaki, Danton explained, his voice cautious. A drop of blood. Naruto nodded. He extended a finger, and with a small kunai that he materialized from a seal on his wrist, a gesture that made Danton and the guards blink in surprise, he lightly pricked his fingertip. A drop of blood beaded on his finger. He let it fall onto the surface of the sun orb. Upon touching the crystal, the drop of blood was not absorbed. Instead, it dissipated into a burst of golden energy, which was instantly absorbed by the orb. The crystal sphere began to spin, emitting a low hum and an intense light. Arcane symbols appeared on its surface, dancing and changing as the orb tried to process the energy it had absorbed. The orb's light intensified, flickering violently. The hum turned into a dull, growing roar, the runes moved with frantic speed, the crystal vibrated as if it were about to burst. King Tomo-kun and Danton watched with astonishment and growing alarm. The orb was struggling. It was trying to measure something that transcended its parameters. It's too much. Danton exclaimed, his voice tense. The orb cannot classify this. It could break, Your Majesty. We've never seen such a reading. Naruto's face remained serene, but in his mental space, the tailed beasts watched with curiosity. Ha 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 ha, the little toy can't handle your power, Iki, Kurama laughed, his voice resonating with a mix of amusement and pride. It was to be expected. Their magic is limited compared to your sage chakra. The sun orb emitted one last blinding flash and a final click before the light went out. The hum ceased. The crystal, though not broken, was hot to the touch and the runes had disappeared, leaving only an opaque surface. It had been overloaded. King Tomo-kun and Danton stood in silence, watching the orb in stunned disbelief. It had not given a reading. It had been overwhelmed. It can't, Danton murmured, his voice filled with incredulity. The king turned to Naruto, his eyes filled with deep admiration. A power that our orb cannot measure. Naruto Uzumaki, you are truly exceptional. A friendship was forged, sealed not by pacts or treaties, but by mutual understanding and respect. Naruto Uzumaki, the king said, with new resolve in his voice. I cannot classify you by our methods, but I can recognize you. Your spirit is noble, your power is immense, and your intentions are pure. You are a hero in your own right. King Tomo-kun sat back on his throne, and with a solemn gesture, made a declaration that would resonate throughout the kingdom. By this decree, and in recognition of your service to the people of Fiore, your immense power, and your unwavering spirit, I hereby appoint you Duke Naruto Uzumaki of the Windlands, with full right to establish your residence and to operate your company under the direct protection of the Crown of Fiore. You will receive lands on the outskirts of Magnolia, suitable for your training. This title grants you a status that the council cannot ignore, and it protects you under the royal mantle. Naruto blinked, completely stunned. Duke? Lands? Royal protection? This was far more than he expected. He had dreamed of being Hokage, a leader of his village, not a noble from another world. But the king was offering him not just status, but a platform to do good on a large scale, and protection from the council's intrigues. Your Majesty, Naruto began, overwhelmed. It is a symbol of our trust, Naruto, the king said, with a warm smile. An alliance between the kingdom of Fiore and the echo of the Whirlwind. A recognition that there are powers and wills that go beyond what we know. I accept, your majesty, Naruto said, with a deep bow. His voice was filled with genuine gratitude. Meanwhile, back at the Fairy Tale Guild in Magnolia, Erza Scarlet stirred with an uneasiness she couldn't ignore. Her connection with Naruto, now a constant in her perception, told her that something important was happening in Crocus. She felt the court's tension, the royalty's surprise, and then, a wave of respect and admiration emanating from the palace's direction. The external pressure on Naruto had become more complex, but there was also a new and strange calm in the blonde's perception. What are you doing now, Naruto? Erza thought, while Master Makarov, in his office, received the royal communique with the news of Naruto's appointment as Duke. The old master could only smile and sigh, a mix of relief and amusement. His adopted son was now a noble. Fairy tale never ceased to surprise him.
And just like that, we've arrived at the grand finale of Season 1. I sincerely hope you've had an amazing time on this adventure, where the vibrant worlds of Naruto and Fairy Tale beautifully intertwine. The next season is almost ready for you, so keep your eyes peeled. You won't want to miss what's coming. Your incredible support truly fuels this project, so please remember to subscribe, hit that like button, and share it with your friends. A massive thank you for watching and listening to this video. See you in the next one, folks.